Hello, welcome to the College Football Mafia Big Freaking Friday Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me are all my partners. That would be Immaculate View, the Wild Ute, and Moen After Dark. How we doing tonight, guys?
Good.
Doing great.
Trying to bring that energy.
But just remember one thing, guys. This is Friday night, and we are. But be kind to us up here. You guys have been brutal as of lately.
This is supposed to be like a reward show. We're gonna cover all the stuff that we don't necessarily have time to do during the week. So we appreciate everybody being here tonight, Friday evening. I'll be here for a couple hours, and we hope that you guys will have a little bit of fun. That's always what I tell our guests they need to do is have fun. If we do that, then my job is done. I can go to sleep okay that night. Let's do some business. First of all, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Follow all of us on Twitter. And then turn on your notifications. That way you know when the show on YouTube and notifications on Twitter, when we're putting out notifications for all the tweets that we have covering all of college football. This is, as it's named above us, you can see the Big Freaking Friday Show. What is this, episode 2? Is that right, Moen?
Yeah, that's right.
Deuce. That's right.
2. Okay, awesome. So we're glad you're here. We appreciate it. It should be a fun show. And we got a bunch of stuff to cover, so I don't think anybody's going to fall asleep. If we have time near the end of the show, we're going to go open mic. We'll take some callers and definitely go through comments. So if you're new to the channel and you want to become a member of the Big Freaking Friday College Football Mafia Show, here are the instructions on how to do that. Maybe.
Want to become a member of the College Football Mafia family? Simply select the Join button from our homepage. There are several options with their own unique benefits to choose from. You can also set yourself to auto-accept gifted membership by selecting the gift settings options as shown.
Thanks again, Moen, for putting that together. Really appreciate it. Before we get started, I also want to give Moen an opportunity to describe what the gifts function is for the comment section and how you can actually give gifted memberships. Tell everybody how that works, Moen.
Sure. You can go down to the bottom of the chat window. You'll see the little cash icon. Through that cash icon, you can leave a super chat. You can become a member. You can gift a membership as well, or several memberships to the community. And those gifted members and all members get to watch Wild Ute University content 2 weeks before it goes to the public. We just released the UNC one this evening leading up to this show. And then tomorrow, I believe, we're releasing How Does Miami Fit into the Big Ten? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And that's a surprise.
So you definitely want to, you definitely want to be there for that. So
And we're going to do that recording tomorrow, right, you?
Tomorrow morning, as long as it doesn't get too hyphy in here, right? With the Georgia Tech stuff.
Well, I hope it isn't that bad. I'm just quickly trying to find the page that shows all those shorts. Give me 1 second here. Great descriptions of all the membership and what we kind of provide here by Moen. We always thank him for that. Okay. So here's the page. If you go to the College Football Mafia, Big 12 Mafia page, you'll see there's this videos button right next to home. You click videos, and this is where our protected content is going to show up. We've done big. Does the Florida State fit in the Big Ten? How does private equity? How can it be used by Florida State? Clemson to the Big Ten. Is that something that we really think can happen or not? And then finally, this most recent one is UNC, which that logo looks incredible, by the way. UNC to the Big Ten. Right?
That is amazing. And the UNC logo with the Big Ten logo, seriously, even prepping the analysis is like, my gosh, this fits. Just the look of it fits.
Absolutely.
It's remarkable.
Maybe it was fated to be there always. All right. This
guy in charge is a North Carolina grad when they made that up. So maybe.
What?
Delaney, Commissioner Delaney, when they first created that. He's a UNC grad. He's one of the main
I didn't know that.
He's one of the main reasons why UNC's been talked about in the Big Ten for a long time. Yep.
Oh, I think they're a great fit, but we'll have to see how that turns out when we talk realignment. All right, let's get some shout outs, and then we'll do the around the horn. David Hackett is first in the house. He says, hello, everyone. It's Friday. Good to have you here, David. Nathan is here. Nathan Campbell is here saying hi, David. Let's see here. Buckshot Kid didn't make it in first today, Buckshot, but we appreciate you being here. Oh, hey, guys. How you doing? Laura Weiss says, hey, y'all, be back soon. So Maybe she had to run an errand. We don't know. Jan Holk, all the way from Slovenia. Well, I guess we determined it's about 3 or 3:30, right? Something like that. Where he's at, that's just crazy.
Are we talking morning?
Yeah, in Slovenia.
Dang.
Yeah, I know, right? He's actually had some things going on in his life that's made it so he's up this time at night. But we really appreciate him being here, and he's a member, and we definitely
Welcome in the house.
recognize that. Let's see here. So Timothy Green says, "Let's get ready for a great show." We thank you very much, Timothy. Let's see here. Now Joaquin Morales says, "Woohoo! Let's go." Appreciate it. Nice to have you here, Joaquin. Mooncat says, "Good evening." And holy cow, Expedition Greg. He's been here for 1 month. Thank you so much. Been a member for a month. Thank you so much, Greg. We appreciate you being a member and encourage you to continue to do those subscriptions. It really help us. King, tell everybody what you're wearing there tonight, Moen.
Money mowing suit here. Cash is king, baby.
Well, we're glad you're here. We really appreciate it. Cleveland
I
Rock.
thought that was your Georgia Tech outfit.
Oh boy, are we drinking already? Holy
I got
cow!
I'm
It's
classy
Friday,
tonight.
Bomber.
I've got
It's
an old
Friday.
fashioned tonight. I'm classy.
Okay. Okay. Well, they're drinking because of Georgia Tech. We got Cleveland Rock saying, "Good evening, all. Hit the like button." Thank you, Cleveland, for being out there and really jazzing everybody up for the show. Tony Lawson says Wisconsin is a terrible fit. Okay, I guess it maybe depends what we're talking about, Tony.
Oh, man.
Let's see here. Don in Kansas says hello, everybody. And I think that's it. All right. So let's get to around the horn and get everybody's ideas where we are as this week's ended up. Start with you. What did you learn about this week and what big news items do you want to cover tonight?
I think that we need to cover the lawsuit that was just, we get some clarity on that lawsuit. I know Macula's going to want to cover a lot of that, but I want to get into some deep analysis and what that means, the NCAA lawsuit in the state of, is it Kentucky?
Tennessee.
Right.
Tennessee.
Looking forward to that discussion. And then again, Miami is an interesting one. It's surprising. So hopefully y'all can take a look at that tomorrow. I'm going to see if you think Miami is actually a fit for the Big Ten. Just wait for tomorrow to see that one. But it's kind of perplexing me a little bit. So, yeah, it's what's on my mind.
You know, there was that time when nobody was talking about Miami, right? And then Greg brought it on Peek Around the Corner. Then everybody was talking about it. And now, again, nobody's talking about it. So it does seem odd. It's true.
Would love to open up a discussion on Miami, but it's still premature. So maybe in a week or two. Yeah.
Okay.
Interested to see what you got. Yeah.
Moen.
Yes, sir. I'm here just to talk about the 14-team playoff and why I think the Big Ten and the SEC deserve 4 AQs.
Okay.
Ooh, all right.
We've reached that point.
Ooh, that's going to get a little rough.
Stakes in the ground, line in the sand. All right. Well, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
How about you, Immaculate? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is what just happened today with the lawsuit. Also, I think what folks might be interested in seeing our reactions on is yesterday with the ESPN filing their brief in support of the ACC. You know, what people think about that, what maybe some of the things they said, which were rather controversial. We can get into that as well.
All right, very good. And I think we've covered everything. We talked about I'm just looking at my notes. So we're talking about the college football playoffs, possibly 14 or 16 team expansion, and the reserve teams. We'll talk about that. We'll start off with the article covering the Tennessee lawsuit, and then we'll get everything else in between. We're going to touch on the Fubo TV thing too. I've got quotations from legal advice, and we're not just sloughing that one off. That one actually has teeth, and both Bob Thompson and Doug Rohan felt there was some stuff there that could cause some trouble for the people on that lawsuit. So, all right, let's jump right into the Pete Thamel covered the lawsuit for, and I'm going to add it to the stage here. So I'll read this, and then Immaculate, you can kind of summarize what we're looking at here, and then we've got a couple other comments that we can refer back to. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, is this Pete Thamel reference. He says, I think this will be one more brick in the wall that is the end of the NCAA. Tom Marslaw said that, at Tom Marslaw. He says to ESPN, he predicts the NCAA is poised to lose all of its upcoming antitrust cases and will need congressional intervention. And then here's the entire quote, and it's pretty expansive. This is covering all of this lawsuit in NIL, and Tennessee was the respondent. Says, I think this will be one more. Sorry, I read the wrong thing. Short of intervention by Congress, the demise of the NCAA now seems inevitable based on nothing but a financial analysis. As it appears, the NCAA is poised to lose all of its upcoming antitrust cases. The cumulative effect which could make the NCAA financially insolvent. That's why the statement above from Pete saying they might need congressional intervention matters so much. And then we have the last statement, which I thought was a dagger. It says, he adds as to why a bad case is a bad case, and they put all their defenses forward, and there's no precedent anywhere in the United States that supports their defenses. So that's all pretty expansive. So why don't you sort of, what are we talking about here, and why is this one of the heaviest loads right now for the NCAA?
Well, what goes on with this is actually kind of in a small location in the country. It doesn't cover everywhere, but what it does is it provides an easy precedent for anyone else to use in filing a similar suit anywhere else. So basically, the NCAA at this point in time has to look at enforcing NIL anywhere else in the country is just going to lead to more cases like this, which is going to continue to cost them money, so they're not going to do it. I saw an interesting analysis that was done, like the percentage of cases where they have an easy precedent like this to follow, which go the way of the precedent, is something like 84%. So basically, they're going to lose across the board. And with what we've seen previously, the NCAA now pretty much has no enforcement arm. NIL is a lot of what they're looking at. And when you look at some of the other cases going after them, there's not much more they can do. And they're trying to create a new model for student athletes versus employees and all that, but they have their top conferences here in Division I that are pushing back against them. So there's just not a single thing going in their direction. Congress has basically said, we're not going to come in and save the day. You've got to come at us in unison together with what you want as a solution, and then basically Congress will just make that happen. But they're not in unison. They're fighting each other. So this one right here, which to most people it may not seem like a big deal or kind of be hard to understand, this one right here is a dagger, because now you're going to see so much happen in the NIL area about what people do to induce players, to buy players. It literally is a wild west right now.
Let me get to a couple more quotes, and then Ute, I was going to ask you a follow-up question. This is a reply from Dan Wetzel about this injunction in this federal case, or what they're handling for this NIL rules thing in Tennessee. It says, federal injunction against NCAA enforcing NIL rules is a death blow to NCAA enforcement. Even in non-NIL cases, there are now almost no NCAA penalties that will have any impact on a program. NIL can be used to circumvent any recruiting sanctions, even scholarship reductions. And then two more. Let's see. I already did that one. This is the other one. Let's see. Yeah, this is the other one from Amanda Kristovich, taking the statement from the NCAA. This is their reply to that injunction being dropped. And it says, turning upside down rules overwhelmingly supported by member schools will aggravate an already chaotic collegiate environment where further diminishing protections for student athletes from exploitation. The NCAA fully supports student athletes making money from their name, image, and likeness, and is making changes to deliver more benefits to student athletes. But an endless patchwork of state laws and court opinions make clear partnering with Congress is necessary to provide stability for the future of all college athletes. All right, tell me why the NCAA should be viable right now.
You want me to tell you why the NCAA should be viable?
Yep.
It
What do
shouldn't.
they do? What's the function they do that is
Well,
vital?
what's the NCAA doing now?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the NCAA? That's essentially what you're asking.
Yep.
It's really hard to determine if they can't enforce and govern anything because they've got no teeth. They don't have much of a purpose, and like in every day, with every lawsuit lost, their purpose is becoming less and less relevant for sure, 100%. So there just isn't a lot to look at for the NCAA anymore. I mean, it's clearly moving. College sports is clearly moving away at the highest level from the NCAA. We all know that's coming. This is just more evidence of that. But yeah, there's not a lot of hope for the NCAA, and Congress isn't going to come in to save the NCAA, like Immaculate's already mentioned. That's
Right.
not. It's not going to happen.
Nope.
So really, the NCAA is toast. It's just a matter of time. Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be in a year, 6 months to 2 years? But the A4 breakaway, or a breakaway of some sort will happen. It will happen because somebody needs to govern college athletics. It's not the NCAA.
Moen. You're muted, Mo.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
If you thought NIL was bad before, wait. Everybody complained about what Ohio State did this offseason.
Right.
Wait. We've got checkbooks filled with zeros just waiting to go.
Those money bars back there.
That's right.
Here-
We've got
an
the
ex-
gold. We got the cash.
Yeah. There's something they can do, Moen. You're going to see players who are marked as walk-ons, but they're not. They're just fully paid for by an NIL deal.
That's
There's
the way it is at Ohio State right now.
There's scholarships, everything, all the costs, and they don't count on the scholarship limit for the team. So they're going to be they can expand these rosters via this way now because that's how big of a deal this is. I just wanted to throw that one thing because that was perfect timing with what he just said. There's just, it's going to be pretty ridiculous.
If you
Yeah,
have
Caleb-
NFL aspirations, what's like the purpose of coming as a walk-on into a program, though? That is happening. I acknowledge that. But like, what's the end game there? Are you just saying, okay, I'm just going to bank on some NIL money for a year or two and then just leave the sport? Because you're not going to get much playing time if you've got, 120.
No.
No,
You
you're not
folks on the roster.
understanding.
You're misunderstanding. These are the top guys.
Caleb
So
Downs.
who's not going to play though, guys?
Caleb
if you got
Downs is a
120
walk-on.
Caleb
Ohio State.
Downs is a walk-on?
Yeah.
Yes.
His entire scholarship, everything, like the money that costs for tuition, it's all being covered by NIL.
Yeah, I don't think the scholarship thing matters anymore.
Yeah, but because of scholarship limits about how many scholarships you can have,
Right.
that's how they would limit your roster. But now there's getting so much money coming into this. Well, they'll just start paying guys.
Right.
They're not part of your scholarship limit, so they effectively increase the amount of guys they have on their team over your team. You'll
There's
have
only a finite amount of playing time at Ohio State.
It's not about the playing time, though. It's about being on the team.
injuries.
But
and
if you care to
being
make the
5
NFL
deep.
and you're a blue chip recruit, like you will go to Ohio State because you're a 4 or 5 star, that's got to be the end game, right?
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
not
gonna get much
arguing with
playing
you.
time.
They
Okay,
need playing
but
time.
I
That's true.
would put this out there. For some people, it's just being developed at Ohio State. Quinn Ewers developed at Ohio State.
And then you
Jamison
transfer.
Williams developed at Ohio State and transferred. So yeah, these guys may not get the best playing time, but you know what? They're going to have a year under Brian Hartline, maybe 2, transfer out to another school, still be a high draft pick.
And whoever proves out through that period of like training in the early years, that's who gets the spot, and the others transfer out. So yeah, it may not be as big as it sounds, but it's pretty huge. You're not going to keep all those guys, but you're going to have your pick of them.
Rock and Rant gives us $5. He's one of our members. Thank you so much, Rock and Rant, for this super chat.
Winner.
He says, I don't think this changes as much as people think. The schools that have money will decide how much more money. The others aren't suddenly rich.
No, he's right. What it does is it removes the cap on those who are rich, like Ohio
Exactly.
State.
Yep.
Like that's the worry. Like we were kind of keeping close. We were competitive. This blows the lid off. I mean, they're going to need a solution very quick. It's either the A4 gets empowered with the autonomous conferences, or they leave.
It sounds like Ohio State needs an A team and a B team, guys. A teams in the Big Ten and the B teams elsewhere.
Yeah, they'd probably win the MAC and the Big Ten championships in the same year. They have a JV team in the MAC.
It's frightening how quickly this has escalated, and the knock-on effects of all these lawsuits. Right now, the NCAA, we read the quote, and then let me read that again because I think that's the biggest part of this. This reply from the NCAA. Let's do this one more time. Turning upside down rules overwhelmingly supported by member schools will aggravate an already chaotic collegiate environment, further diminishing protections for student athletes from exploitation. The NCAA fully supports student athletes making money from their name, image, likeness, and is making changes to deliver more benefits to student athletes. But an endless patchwork of state laws and court opinions make clear partnering with Congress is necessary to provide stability for the future of all college athletes. And I would just add that several months ago when they had those hearings at Congress, and they basically questioned everybody that was leadership. Charlie Baker especially was on the hot seat in front of Congress, and they asked him, why did you wait and you didn't do this years ago? And he said, because we didn't think there was a need. And the Congress basically told them, well, if you're waiting for it to be resolved by coming to us, it's already broken. There's nothing we can do to fix it. So, yeah, I don't know what else could really done on that.
Immaculate, what could Congress do in theory that could save the NCAA? What's the best case scenario if that happened to work out?
Basically, they would enshrine the whole student athlete status, which, as some people say, would basically be Congress breaking their own laws. But they're Congress; they make laws. They could do that. They could set limits. They could basically just decide how it's going to be, how it's going to work. But they don't want to. They're not. I mean, this is Congress. It's split. And then you're going to have a split situation here between certain schools and the NCAA, which is, it's all different schools. So it's just heavy politics, and it's like two different layers of politics. They don't want to get down there and make enemies at a time when, politically they don't want to. So it's like you have to come to us all as one, all in unison. This is what we want. And then Congress is just going to be like, there you go. It's yours. But it's split. That's what was so important about the Big Ten and the SEC going against President Baker was it basically meant now that Congress can't act.
There are things they can put. They can tie up things like NIL money, though. They have control because of taxes. Go ahead, Moen.
In theory, Congress can't find their ass with two hands, a flashlight.
I'm just saying.
And we expect them to fix college football.
Yeah.
Well,
they can't even agree on funding Ukraine, and I just,
they want the answer brought to them, and then they're just going to put their power behind it. They don't.
You know what Congress is, though, right? It represents the whole length and breadth of the United States. The SEC and Big Ten are not the entire length and breadth of the United States. There's only 30 some odd schools in those two groupings. That means a majority. That means the majority of Congress, the majority of the Senate, is somewhere else. So
they're not
they
just
can
taking the Big Ten side.
All I'm saying is you guys can poo-poo the government all you want, but if they come in and do exactly what you described, they could lock the whole thing down. They could put in salary caps, and they could actually say everybody that can meet this bare minimum can compete in this higher level.
No, what I'm saying
do that.
is if the NCAA and all of its conferences and everyone comes to in unison with one answer and says, this is what we need done, then Congress will act. Because otherwise, you're right. The major conferences don't have control over everyone in Congress. They're not going to step in between and do all of what you just said. What I meant by in unison, I mean the entirety of the NCAA, like one answer.
When was the last time they were all in unison?
It's not going to happen, and that's why it's like it's either they're going to break away or the NCAA just has to give the A4 FBS a new division and their own governance over it, because then that division can form its own answer, and they can go to Congress and say this is what we need. And it basically puts Baker and the rest of the NCAA out of the picture, so they can kind of, go take a vacation in Hawaii or whatever the hell they want to do. Just give it to the FBS A4 to figure out something, because they're not going to figure out one solution for everyone. Just look at the FCS. They're having their own meetings about breaking away from Division I themselves. So it's just too messy to try to find one solution for everybody.
I think those are really good points. At the end of the day, we all know if Congress gets into something, the very first thing they'll do is make a mess of it. So
Yeah.
it's
They
really
want the answer
stupid
brought
that
to them.
it's. What's that?
They want the answer brought to them. They don't want
Right.
to make the answer themselves.
Right. Yeah. But if they don't get it done and everybody agrees, then it could be a nightmare, to be honest.
100.
All right, let's move on. We're going to move to the legal arguments with Florida State. Let me bring these two filings up. I got from Greg Flugar's Peek Around the Corner, his Twitter. So just to catch everybody up, Florida State was sued by the ACC, and ESPN was asked to give testimony in the ACC's behalf, so they could sort of be joined to the lawsuit. ESPN did not sue Florida State, I want to be very clear, but through this other lawsuit that the ACC did, they're making some accusations. And in my opinion, these were remarkable accusations. I'll read them. You guys can tell me what you thought about them, and then we'll discuss what the legal experts actually said when I asked them. So let me bring this up here. So ESPN not happy with Florida State. This was from yesterday. Greg Flugar's Twitter handle. Let me copy, and I will paste so everybody has access to this. Because that's what we do here is we give attribution. ESPN. So this is ACC versus Board of Trustees, Florida State University. Let's say that again. Atlantic Coast Conference. This is not ESPN suing Florida State. Okay. It says ESPN is the worldwide leader in sports. I love how they pat themselves on their back. Let's see. Thanks to its unparalleled live sports, ESPN live broadcast. It's like the whole first paragraph was a commercial. Get about halfway down, it says the terms of ESPN agreements are textbook trade secrets. Publicly disclosing the terms of an ESPN agreement with a prominent rights holder would be destabilizing and harmful. Competing networks would gain a leg up on ESPN in the next round of negotiations with rights holders, and all other rights holders negotiating with ESPN would capitalize on the knowledge of what specific terms ESPN has agreed to with or has not required from others. It says the plaintiff ACC or Atlantic Coast Conference and the defendant Board of Trustees of Florida State University have a commercial dispute. Then a little bit farther in the filing, this is where it's funny. It says whether FSU and its lawyers have committed a felony by knowingly disclosing ESPN's trade secrets is a question for another day. That's not true. But relevant here, there's no question that trade secrets are carefully guarded throughout the United States, including in Florida. The definition of a trade secret under Florida law, blah, 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 blah. So I asked, so I went and asked my guys, my legal experts, that would be Danielle, Kelly, and Doug Rohan. I asked them about these things, and this is what Doug replied. It says, and Danielle, they both agreed to the same thing. It says it is illegal to threaten criminal prosecution as a part of a civil suit. As we stated with the complaints, the allegations can say anything. The question is, what are they able to prove? And then a little bit further down from Danielle, it says, Florida is very, very tough on this issue. I wouldn't even insinuate that in a pleading. They would never make that case in a pleading. Speaking as a former prosecutor and civil lawyer, let me get everybody back here. As a civil lawyer, that is something that is taken very seriously here. If anything, it gives us more ammunition in countersuit. So,
What a mess.
Right? So we already knew ACC was floundering and continues to flounder. And now the ESPN comes in and they say they're helping, but really I think they're just making it worse. What do you guys think?
The felon language seems completely inappropriate, guys. Seriously, that is so inappropriate to say This is a felony charge. I mean, it's just unbelievable to even hear that and everything. When you think of a felon, you think of something completely different than revealing a trade secret from ESPN, which is as simple as a kicker and a contract. It's not like it's overly complicated or anything here. I mean, I think some of the language is ridiculous, way too extreme, and just completely untrue, honestly. And I think that's going to bear out and everything. Obviously, ESPN's pissed off. They're worried. You know, the ACC's got to be worried. It's not looking good. There's likely going to be a settlement. But if I was FSU, guys, I wouldn't even settle this freaking case. I would just let it ride and freaking pay nothing.
Yep.
There is a chance that you pay nothing. I know that the smoke is 190 million approximately for the exit penalties for the FSU.
That was that was a little. I'm not sure how much I want to repeat because I couldn't actually find that anywhere. The only place I heard that was on Greg's show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
that's
from
I
Greg's Money
didn't.
Purge.
I did not
ATC.
get one other person that had any information on that, but he did. That's what he said. Yeah, the money.
Let's say it's 200
was
million.
190.
Why would you even pay that out? Seriously, why don't you just take this thing to its conclusion or just ride this out longer and longer and get that down more and more? I think $200 million at this point is way too much to pay. Double.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if it gets you out of the ACC right now and it gets you into the Big Ten, you do it.
Why, Moen?
You're
talking generational wealth that they might not have to spend.
They might have to, though. So,
But
I mean, you're going to have to look at it. Maybe, but you can get out right now. You can settle right now and get into the Big Ten.
Yeah,
or maybe you can settle in 3 months for $100 million.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking. It's like getting a second job.
I mean, I think the way that this is moving, it's clear that this is moving in Florida State's favor. Why do you jump out now? Why don't you just take this thing down further and push that price down more?
What do they have to lose is my question.
Yeah, exactly. What do they have to lose? I mean, if you do the cost-benefit analysis, if you can get out within a year and save yourself $100 million or so,
right? It's a high rate of
really is going to pay off.
Yes.
Well, what could happen is that could, and I'll let you go, Immaculate, right after.
No. Go. Yeah, go right ahead.
That case could get thrown out in Florida. You're assuming that everything in this case goes Florida State's way. What if it doesn't? And they
We're
could
not
be on the
assuming
hook for
that, though.
$572 million. They could be locked into the ACC for the next 13 years because if they're in the ACC, ESPN is going to automatically extend that deal.
If there was a percent chance, if there was a percent chance, what would you say the percent chance was they were going to lose where the case is actually heard? It's not going to be in Florida State. In Florida, sorry. They're going to lose that, and they're going to lose the main filing that says this is how much you have to pay to get out. What are the chances that they lose both of those?
I think the chance that they lose in Florida is pretty high because the North Carolina case was filed first.
Yeah, but the North Carolina case was filed before there was any separation put by Florida State.
I understand that, but I still think that the North Carolina one will go first because it was filed first.
Okay, yeah. That's not what we've heard from legal people, though.
I understand that. But I look, why take the risk? You can pay now, get out, have your future secured, get into the Big Ten. If you get into the Big Ten at number 19, you can dictate who you want at number 20.
It's not a bad thought.
I think there's more benefits to leaving now than waiting. Yes, you might. I might let it roll and win everything, and then I might lose everything.
It's just about how much we're talking here. If it's truly 200 million, that's pretty significant money, guys. The worst case scenario is in the 400 million. So I guess you chop that in half, but a lot of folks think it's going to be less than 100 million. And in this thing's gone so sideways that Florida State can get out technically for free, or even maybe sue the ACC because of the Raycon stuff and get some money out of it. That. I'm serious about that, guys. Seriously, there's improprieties that went on here. There's a lot of upside, short-term upside in riding this thing out more and letting this thing deteriorate. And as time goes by, this becomes more destabilizing for the ACC. Florida State, even if they lost the case, ain't going to shut their mouth. It's going to be an absolute cluster going forward here. So they've already done enough damage that I just See, that's the play. Don't pay $200 million when it could be significantly less. And to recoup that, it's going to be so many years to recoup $200 million. It's going to be 3 or 4 years in the big, at least. So you play this a little bit more and stuff, and based on your cost benefit analysis, you get out for a lot less.
Well, first off, I don't think it's going to be that high. I don't want to go against anyone else's reportings. I just don't think it's going to be that high. But in terms of why they would make a settlement this soon and this quick, we've seen by their filing, they want out so that they can be in wherever they're going in the future for the 2025 season. So as much as I agree with you, like if they had time, they could probably ride this out to the very end, get off for free, or maybe like you're saying, even have room for their loss of their own in order to get damages. But I don't know. They might not have time. I'm not saying they don't have time, but they might have a limited amount of time. If they want into the Big Ten for the 2025 schedule season, they have to be out by August, something like 4th
July.
or something like that. July. And that doesn't mean like you settle in July. That means you're settling, and then you're working out that stuff, and then you're dealing with the Big Ten, and you got a lot to do in a short amount of time.
Right. You have to settle by February of 2025, I believe. Is the actual date they have to announce that they are leaving the ACC.
Yeah, it was one.
Yeah.
February, and then July they would be part of the Big Ten.
Let's get to a couple super chats here. First from Carrie for $10, and Carrie's a member. Thank you so much, Carrie. It's great to see you here. He says, I'm hearing FSU gets out of this crap at 100 to 150 million tops. Go Noles. Just so everybody knows, when we first started our estimates, I was right at 100, 120. You was somewhere like around 80.
80.
And Immaculate have changed it as the news has come out. Immaculate's changed his a little bit. Moen, I don't remember getting an answer
I was at
from
one.
you.
I was at 175.
Okay, so there. See, well, look how close our guesses are.
And Carrie, I like your profile picture with that basset hound, if that's a basset hound.
And another super chat from Cleveland Rocks, another one of our members. Thank you so much, Cleveland Rocks, for $10. Says the NIL is actually helping schools like K-State and Texas Tech, who historically have had trouble attracting 4 and 5 stars. Now they are attracting quality talent who previously never would have come. And this was a comment earlier. I think that's falling back on what we were talking about, how Ohio State is stacking 5 stars. You know, they got all this talent. They want to go somewhere to play, so they're developed at one school, and then they go out to these other schools and succeed. Texas Tech being one of them. I know BYU and Utah have done the same thing, taking some players that didn't get a chance to play at their first school.
Absolutely. And compare this to the difference between the NFL with its caps on how much you can spend on these guys versus baseball, which does not.
Right.
We're going from a system with NIL caps, which is similar to the NFL, to a system with no NIL caps that is similar to Major League Baseball. So that what he's talking about for those schools and how it's benefiting under this system, that could go away when schools like Ohio State now are not having to play within the same range. If that makes sense. Like while you're able to spend money to get those guys now, Ohio State's and the other ones like them can up how much more they're spending, and then once again go start taking those guys back away from you. That's how serious it is.
I love the idea of Ohio State paying the wages of players for 2 years, developing them, and then transferring on.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll take that. I'll take that NBA of the week.
It's not horrible. You're not wrong, but they're
not.
just getting first choice. Like whoever shows up the best, because there's a person in high school, you might be graded a 5-star, and then when they get up there and you get them into equal competition, because maybe in high school they were just way above everyone else, and but when they get up to the next level, they don't pan out. They'll know that, and then you can have him, and he's still a good player, but he's just not quite what everyone thought he might have been initially. So they'll get that first look, and then they can cut people out.
Sorry, I just realized my production crew just let me know that I wasn't able to provide any sounders or congratulations for these super chats. So once again, let's thank Carrie for $10. Thank you so much, Carrie. And we'll Do the same for Cleveland Rocks. Another $10. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. I don't want you to think we take you for granted. We do not take you for granted. I promise. All right, let me get this one off here. Let's see. Hide. Okay, so anything more about that? I mean, we can touch on it later in Q&A, but I think right now what we're looking at is there is an opportunity for them to get out. The one thing we didn't speak about, which again came up as a big news item, but we knew weeks and months ago that it wasn't. Bob Thompson told us that those rights for these schools at these different conferences are a commodity, and they can buy them and sell them. All of a sudden, that was released, in the last week and a half, as that was a big news item when it wasn't at all. That's always been the case. These schools have always had a chance to buy back their rights. So,
It's
do you guys
just a
want to
matter
say
of
anything more
price.
about that? Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
like in this lawsuit's really interesting in Florida because it's my understanding that if Florida State were to win this lawsuit, that it would basically nullify the idea of a grant of rights. Immaculate, is that your understanding of this lawsuit? Like, what if
No.
Florida State were to win? Could grant of rights be binding anymore for any
Yes.
school?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just, yes, I do believe so, because some of the circumstances around this one is really what the shadiness is. It's not the grant of rights itself. We saw that hold up pretty well with Texas. It gave the Big 12 enough of a bargaining position to get off okay on that and possibly get that deal for those next 4 schools all lined up to go. But with this situation, what you had a commissioner who was agreeing to secret aspects of it with the network and then not relaying that to the presidents and signing deals and getting them to sign on to a gore for that. To say that it's felonious to bring that out into public is basically to say that the whole power of this deal was in the manipulation and the lie that it's till 2036 when it's not. So it kind of seems self-incriminating to me. So I don't think that this makes gores out of date. It just probably means they may be different going forward, if that makes much sense.
Yeah, that
Anything
does
else?
make sense.
Go ahead. Was there a follow-up? I didn't mean to
Yeah,
cut you
so
off.
like Immaculate, maybe you can help me because sometimes I get lost in the details with the legal stuff, right? Lost in like what we're talking about
Easy to
today.
do, yeah.
And like from the highest level, could you kind of articulate what the lawsuit is about? Like what the argument from Florida State is from like a layman's term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the first things I saw that came out, it was that they felt that they were kind of fraudulently sold on the ACC network, for one. Like what they were promised that it would do and the returns that it would have were not met. So they're saying the terms of the contract were not met. So it's not that the contract itself is no longer good. It's that they didn't meet the terms of the contract. But that was what they first said in public. Turns out there's a whole lot more in private that we didn't know about. And they've been kind of dropping little bits in order to try to push the story. But it's basically that original agreement, the second agreement, the amendment to the original agreement in 2016, was not lived up to. Therefore, consideration was not met. They're even along the lines that they were falsely sold on it. They were sold a promise from the then commissioner that was not met, and that he actually didn't even have the position to promise that. Like his agreement with ESPN is actually different than what he sold to the commissioners on. So it's basically just they're trying to void this because of kind of fraudulent terms, if that makes sense.
And the fraudulent terms are based partly because of the Raycom transaction.
That's a big part of it.
It sucked a lot of money out of it. Yep.
And also the other part of that was the way that he re-signed the agreement to extend it so that ESPN has the right to hold or drop and ACC doesn't. That's the other thing. He did that without a full board. I know what Moen's saying, and maybe get out for $200 million it's definitely the expedient thing to do. I think it's insane when they can get it for maybe 50 million for free.
And
It's
also,
all about
That's a
cost
lot of
benefit
money.
analysis.
It's a lot of money. Anyway, we'll
Yeah.
know. Time will tell. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's right.
I do know one thing: Florida State is going to get out.
Yeah, we
They're
do
gonna
know
get
that.
out.
And today, I think I might have sent you guys notes. I heard from two different sources, actual sourced people. One guy at the ACC and another guy around Florida State that said that right now, at least today, is the Big Ten is the move. So, not that we're surprised by that, but every day more and more reporting's coming out that that's their destination.
one last point, if I could.
Yeah.
Real quick. They're ESPN wants the terms of that deal sealed. That's what they're filing in support for.
Right.
And that's somewhere upwards of like 190 some pages, I think. We don't know if there's not more bombshells in there. Like some of this stuff is already out. People are kind of making jokes like, we already know about it. What's there to seal? How do we know everything? What if there's more in that thing? And if it gets sealed, we won't know that. What if they're not trying to stop what's come out of the bottle, but there's still more of that genie in the bottle and they don't want the rest of it to come out? So there could be more to this that we do not know.
Could be. I'm 100%
I mean,
positive there is.
I think there is.
Yeah,
But
I think
we don't know that. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Let's get to a couple more things just so everybody knows. Programming note. Bill following the money. My Florida State part-time FSU. Oregon State, Washington State, but he's a financial business guy, knows contract law, and he understands the finances tied to him. He's going to be joining us in a half hour. Okay. And we're going to talk Fubo TV, hopefully, Fubo TV contract, and maybe some more of the Florida State news. Maybe the number. Maybe he's heard something different on the number, too.
We're going to have a chance to get to some of these.
Okay.
We'll get
I'm bringing this up, guys.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
bringing this up. Let's have a discussion about Florida State and the SEC, please. Would like to get your thoughts, each of your thoughts on Florida State and the SEC. We all know that the likely place is the Big Ten for good reason. I would like to hear your thoughts on Florida State and the SEC and why that's a good fit for both. I haven't heard that anywhere, and I would love to get that from each one of you guys. So, Bomber, how about you first? SEC and Florida State. How does that work?
Okay, originally I thought
the SEC.
Yeah, originally when we talked about this back in June and May, I said without a doubt they were going to the SEC. There was not even a question in my mind. Bobby Bowden, I know, had talked about it during the 90s. There were some challenges there, some stuff they didn't want to talk about very much, but I thought that was the natural move. So I've always thought that he would go to the SEC until Florida State got shut out for the college football playoff, and they turned around and sued with ESPN's help Florida State to keep them where they are. They don't want to improve their situation. They could have negotiated with Florida State a simple flop from the ACC to the SEC if they wanted to. They could have expedited that move, knowing Florida State was upset. They didn't do any of that stuff. So in my opinion, that burned all the bridges. And the Big Ten was always the more erudite choice. You know, you have all the research, you have all the educational opportunities. But I always thought it was SEC until the college football playoff snub.
Immaculate.
Yeah, until the whole CFP debacle, I guess we'll call it. I was always Florida State's going to the SEC because there's no way they're going to allow the Big Ten to plant their flag in Tallahassee. And I kind of thought that donors and people who are down there around there, they want to be in the SEC. It's closer places to travel. They have, let's just be honest, they got more in common. Florida State's up in Tallahassee in the northern part of Florida. That is a lot more culturally aligned to the South than say like Miami and Southern Florida. So I kind of figured like just culturally they'd want to be in the SEC. The best part for Florida State in the Big Ten would be, some of the academic stuff and programs, but in everything else, it just, to me, it made more sense to actually be in the SEC. So, there's a lot of reasons to be there. It just kind of seemed like the SEC wasn't that interested. But maybe now they're finally getting on the defensive. We'll see.
Moan.
Yeah, it was never a doubt in my mind. I always had them pegged for the Big Ten.
I remember.
Yeah,
I
they're
remember.
You
crown
did.
jewel for the
You
Big
did.
Ten.
Yep.
You're just going to get lost in the shuffle in the SEC.
Yeah. Do you think that the SEC will fight to add Florida State at the end of the day as a defensive move?
I think they've already lost the fight.
I agree. But they could try, but once you probably turned all the big boosters against you because of what happened with the CFP, the administration and academia is all going to want the Big Ten. The boosters and big money guys is where the SEC had the advantage, I'm sure. But with what happened, they might have lost that. And if they lost that, they got nothing.
Yeah, I think it's the Big Ten.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys.
Yeah. And I realize other outlets have different opinions, and us four don't always agree on stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that college football playoff snub for an A-list school just to prop up another conference, I thought that was the death knell. I cannot see them coming back from that.
I don't think they realized that would happen. I think that there were ACC officials and other schools in the ACC that were good with this because they thought that there'd be more money due to Alabama. And they were the number one ratings target all year long. They were the top in the ratings. So I don't think that they realized that this was coming the way it came. Like, this was not looked at all.
Have we heard that story before? Wow, I think somewhere last year we heard somewhere in a faraway land on an island somewhere. This story happened before, didn't it? Are my headphones working here? It's the exact same messaging we heard out of the Pac-12. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Didn't see it coming. Didn't think it was a real thing. These educated people are some of the dumbest people I've ever heard of in my life.
They're smart, but they get caught up in their own hubris and their own ego, and they think that whatever it is they're thinking, they think this cannot go wrong because I'm smart.
Yeah, well,
and
finding out
unfortunately, it can't.
Carrie, another $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Carrie. Moen, you want to hit that?
Let him cook.
There goes.
Let him cook now. Let him cook.
I hope you like that drop. Hey, by the way, we're taking suggestions. If you guys have a drop that Moen should be using instead of the ones we normally use, let us know. Send us a DM. I'm willing to discuss changes to the show. But right now, Moen's running the train and nobody's stopping him. So
Those are perfect.
All right, here we go.
One last thought on Florida State, and then we can move on. Okay.
Okay. Because we're going to circle back to Florida State. You realize that, right?
We'll go in the future here.
Okay, let's do that. There's a couple of things I want to get to. First of all, Carrie 999 says, "Thanks, Moen is my Basset Hound pick profile, and his name is Dash. Play the cooking kind of track."
Which I did. I played to let him cook.
You want to do it again or what?
I can do it again. I was just going to say I've got a beagle ear myself. I might bring him on stream one day.
Oh, I love animals.
Let him cook.
There are other people's.
Let him cook now. Let him cook.
Nice.
All right.
That was nice.
All right, next item up for bid. Here we go. Again from Greg, but this is actually a listing that was put out by John Kurtz a few days ago, talking about this new negotiation for the college football playoff. Right now, the last we heard, and by the way, we didn't hear anything from Thursday afternoon after. Everybody went dark again. So I would have thought if this would have been in the can, they might have been able to announce it by the week's end. I think there was considerable pushback, but let's talk about it really quick. The SEC gets 4 auto bids. The Big Ten gets 4 auto bids. The ACC, if they continue to exist, gets 2. The Big 12, who is going to exist, gets 2. G5 gets 1, and the at-large get 3. That was the 16-team playoff, and that was kind of the stretch. If you get rid of 16 and you go to 14, the only thing that changes is there's only one at-large bid. Everybody else is locked into their auto bids. So, I'll shrink this down so that everybody can see us and that tweet.
No.
I'm going to start with...
No.
I'm going to start. Can I say my opinion first? How about that?
Yes.
My opinion is 16 teams, and we go to no reserve slots. All right, I'm done. All right, you go ahead.
Expand on that. 16 teams, no reserve spots, so all automatic qualifiers?
No auto bids. No home.
No auto bids. Just all
no home. Everybody plays the same number of games. No buys. And if they take the top 16, if they did the top 16, there's plenty of ACC and Big 12 representation that would have been in the last 10 years. I think that's the best opportunity. Is you go, it would be basically essentially the top 16 teams.
Understood.
No auto bids.
No auto bids. I think there should be auto bids. In fairness, I think it should be the SEC with 3, the Big 10 with 3, the Big 12 with 2, and the ACC with 2. Maybe 1 for the ACC here because they're going to be falling apart here. So I don't know. I mean, 3-3-2-2. And then, because here's the thinking, guys. You see the at-large, that at-large equals 3 right now. Where do you think those are going to be coming from? Are those going to be coming from the Big 12 if Big 12 gets 2 in? No, they're going to be coming from the SEC and Big 10. So really, you're getting 11 from the SEC and the Big 10. That's how I see it. It's just too dang many. I think you open up more auto bids and it adds more opportunity for a Big 12 or ACC team to sneak in there. So you're getting less SEC and Big 10 teams. Because when I look at this right now, I'm seeing 11 out of the 16 teams in the field from the SEC and the Big 10. And that's just too dang many.
Well, but if we work that backwards, if we did go and they get 11, that means there's 5 that could go to the ACC and the Big 12. How's that any different than giving them auto bids? At least this gives them a chance. Every year, 1 or 2 schools could slip into the top 10, and then you'd have more.
I don't like the fact that they'll have automatic berths into that, like earn it on the field, earn it with the ranking, and not just automatically get in, like your pod champions, for example. If you went,
well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want auto bids, so.
Yeah, and I'm saying that I don't mind auto bids. I just think that the SEC should have 3 auto bids instead of 4. Okay. And the Big 10 should have 3 instead of 4. And then you should expand out the at-large field from 3 to 5 if you're looking at this grid right here, because that opens up more opportunity for a Big 12 or an ACC to get more teams in rather than just 2.
Okay. Moen, I know you talked about this a little bit earlier.
14 teams, all automatic qualifiers, no at-large bids. Big 10 gets 4, SEC gets 4, ACC 2, Big 12 2, G5s and independents 2. Top 2 conference champions get the number 1 and the number 2 seed. And the reason for it, before everybody jumps down my throat that it's a Big 10 SEC thing, the media partners want the biggest brands in the playoff system. That is what is going to get everybody the most money. Cash is king. So right now, like Bob Thompson said, that last thing that came in for a 12-team playoff was light. It was light because they couldn't guarantee that they were going to have a Texas, an Alabama, a Georgia, a Florida all making it in from the SEC, or they couldn't have an Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, USC all making it in from the Big 10. So those locking them with 4 automatic qualifiers ensures that happens, which means that media partners will pay more. I think 2 for the Big 12 is very fair. I think 2 for the ACC is very fair. I think that's what you would normally get on a anyway on a top 16. And then the G5 independent, you got to lock that independent down for Notre Dame until they join a conference. If Notre Dame ever joins a conference, then you can have 1 at large. But until then, you need access for 1 G5, 1 independent. I think it makes the most sense. I think it makes the most money. I think it keeps everybody's worried about revenue gaps. That's the Big 12 and the ACC will do better than they've ever done under the current system. The G5 will do better than they've done under the current system. I think it just makes the most sense to me.
Immaculate.
Well, first point, if we go to this mini auto bids, what this really means, the translation, is that they do not like what happened with the public and with the tournament here this past season. So they want to get rid of the selection committee. That's what this is. If you have all auto bids, and your selection committee has no purpose anymore, because this is going to be determined by each conference, by the conference, schedule, by who has the most wins, least wins, whatever. The selection committee goes away. So that's what that is. Do I like this? I don't think we're going to 16. I think that they do want to, at least the Big Ten and the SEC want to keep buys for their champions. That's what was coming with the 14. I'm not a big fan of this. I know some big fans might not like me saying this, but I would almost put the Big and the SEC auto bid together and the Big 12 and the ACC auto bid together. Give like 8 auto bids for the Big and SEC as a whole, then 4 for the Big 12 and the ACC as a whole. So if, say, like the ACC has a really bad year, the Big 12 might get 3. And say the SEC has a really bad year, the Big 10 might get 5. But me personally, I think that this is hardball leading to basically a difference in payouts. But I would go with the 14 over the 16, just not in terms of my own personal desire, but what I think they actually want to do. I don't think they want to go to 16 and not have any type of buys at all.
So Bob Thompson said 16 would be the natural progression.
He might be right.
And he sees that because it's light on money, going to 16 gets you another $3 million per team in those, what is that, 2 other games? So that's a lot of money. And not having him in there just to give buys.
So why not go to 18?
Most powerful conferences.
Why not go to 20?
Well, why to stay at 16? Because I think that covers the most of the conferences and the schools that would qualify for a playoff.
My point is, though, I mean that point is valid about the being more money in 16 than 14, but I'm just saying that's not everything. That's not 100% of the determination. It might be from the network perspective. Yeah, that might be exactly the network perspective on how to look at it. But I think from the university standpoint, the conferences, there might be a little more to it than that. Otherwise, as my point is, well, if there's more money to get to 16, then let's just go more money to 18 or more money to 20.
If you're the Big 12 or the ACC, why would you not want to have 2 more teams in? That very well could be their 3rd best team.
You definitely want 2 more teams.
Yeah, I think you want more
100%.
access to those other leagues. Look, you guys have, if we want to look at it from a won and lost situation, the Big 2 have won the fight. Now all we're doing is quibbling over the details. So
Right.
I'm saying by getting rid of auto bids or by expanding to 16, or you could do both, it brings more people to the table.
Or you can do 14 and make sure that your media partners know you're going to have the 4 best Big Ten brands. Listen, the Big Ten and the SEC have consolidated the biggest brands in college football. It is what it is, and it's going to continue. Florida State's going to leave, Clemson's going to leave, Miami's going to leave. You're going to have 2 conferences with all the biggest brands. The media partners want big brands in the college football playoff. That is what they will guarantee pay for. So if you go to 14 teams with just making sure that you have 4 guaranteed big slots, 4 guaranteed SEC slots for the media partners, you're going to make more money in the ACC. You're going to make more money in the Big 12. You're going to make more money in the G5. You're going to make more money in the independent.
But you're going to make more money with 16 too, Moen.
No, I think you make more money doing it with a 14 than you would a 16.
Why? Where does the money? Why is it
because
more
you
money?
are guaranteeing that you're going to have those 4 brands every year. You're going to guarantee.
But you're going to have them anyway.
4...
They've got their 4 auto bids right there. Of course, they're going to have them.
Right, but you don't even need to go to 16 teams to do that. You can do that with 14 teams.
Well, I'm saying, and okay, that works for the Big Ten. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for me.
I think it'll probably work for you when you see. I think it'll work for the Big 12 when they see the money.
I don't care about the money. I'm a fan.
Well, I understand.
Money doesn't mean anything to me.
Hey, cash is king.
It's king out in the world. We're talking about playing football games.
Well, the
world. I'll tell you the difference between your argument and my argument. It's not about money. You want the 2 best schools to get a bye. Lie to me and tell me I'm lying.
I believe the 2 highest rated schools should get a bye.
And what other? Okay. Yeah, this is going to be the struggle, right? This is going to be the struggle, and I don't know how these groups.
And remember, it requires a unanimous vote to pass. So that's why when we disagreeing about it here, it's going to be very hard to get any of this passed. They had a 9-hour session where
I got that.
The commissioners met on this after the board passed the 5+7. I just don't think that they find an agreement on this, and it leads to a kind of a breakup of this.
There's
That's
an
my
issue here
position.
with the bye, guys. There's an issue with the bye. This isn't the NFL. I know that the NFL has a bye for each conference. But we're looking at college football. We don't have peer like opponents like in the NFL.
Right.
We're playing different conferences. There's not going to be cross play. So you're
Yeah.
going to the ranking system to determine something as significant as a first round bye, which is a massive advantage. That's completely unfair. The NFL doesn't do that. They play it on the field.
Okay,
This
but
is college football. So you're getting opinion, the public opinion, to get the first 2 seeds and get
if
a
they get
freaking
rid of
first
the
round bye,
bye,
which is a
they're
massive
getting rid of
advantage.
conference tournament. They're getting rid of conference championship games if they don't have that bye. And
Okay.
there's a lot of money in that. And we're looking at that saying, okay, as fans, there's no way they agreed to that. I think that's why the bye is in there, is to preserve those games
What was
once they
saying?
get into this point.
Only for those 2 conferences, though. I would agree with
That's
you.
what they're saying.
That's the
That doesn't
assumption.
mean-
The SEC and the Big are going
I
to
would
get the
be
2
okay
buys
with-
every freaking year.
I would love all 4 champions to get buys.
Yeah. And
come
you
up
know
with a
what?
system and
They
those
didn't
2's
agree to this. Like, this was
That's my
probably the
point.
SEC and the Big putting this out. I don't think that thing passes.
I'm
That
agreeing with you.
idea. Yeah.
But
But I'm just saying, I think that there's zero chance that you won't see any buys. If it's 4 buys or no buys, there'll be 4 buys.
Look, we all realize why buys are so important. We don't need to hash that out. And what
Okay.
Moen is saying is backed up by actions, right? Everything he said is actually what they're asking for today. So it's not like that's something we just made up in our little group here. But I am saying, and this is, you and I have talked about this offline, as advocates for the conference that we represent, we need to do everything we can to advocate for the most access for the most teams. And money is a measuring stick. It's not the end all be all. We're playing for a championship. We're trying to get the best champion, not the best school that made the most money. So
it seems inappropriate to give buys to just the 2 highest rated teams based on the AP poll or the CFP committee or whatever. That's just too big of an advantage now. This isn't just seeding for a 4-team CFP. This is a bye week to advance. We're talking about injuries. We're talking about so many things that could happen in a football game. That does not happen in the NFL. It's not appropriate. It shouldn't be accepted. 14 should never be allowed. Never. It needs to go to 16 teams.
If you're going to bring up the NFL youth, they coin flipped who got the number 1 seed one year. It wasn't settled on the field. So there's times the NFL has done things shady as well to seed teams in the NFL. 7 and 9 teams make the playoffs. How is that fair that a 7 and 9 team gets in the playoffs where a 10 and 6 team gets left out?
if you go to
the division
divisions, that
champs.
solves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to divisions then. If that's if that's the argument, then split the country up by divisions.
But
And then you can have division championships, and then you can fight it on the field.
this is
This
not
is
the
college
NFL,
football.
This
I'm
is
not- I didn't
know.
bring the NFL
I'm
into it.
kind
We're
of
moving to
talking
an
this
NFL
issue.
model, and the argument is the
not fully.
14 is
Not
just
fully.
like the NFL. Like it's 7 and 7, just like the NFL. The difference is the human component on the
There's
rankings.
similarities, but it's not like you don't look at it and say this can't be because it doesn't work in the NFL. Like this is what they're looking at now is because there isn't one commissioner. There's 10 plus 1.
Right.
It's a messier situation, and any one of them can blow it up. You know, and they all have to kind of come to some kind of agreement for this for 2026. So there's not a lot of time. So that's my point is like just by looking at our own discussion and how we can't come really to an agreement, and we're just fans of this. I just don't see it. Like it just doesn't happen. But one thing I can guarantee you is that there's no way you can talk those schools into not having a bye for their conference championship winners, because those guys have to play an extra game, win, have value, and then go in with one less week than all these other teams to play in the tournament. So I mean, you could say, well, the NFL doesn't do it. I don't think that they care. Like they're not trying to be an absolute mimic of the NFL. They're just trying to take ideas that maybe have worked in the NFL. But if it doesn't work for them, they're not going to do it.
Here's
How would you
Becky
even
Go
determine who
Huskies.
gets that?
Sorry, go
How
ahead.
would you determine who gets the bye? The first 2 seeds, is that just based on the rankings? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't-
the
BCS
SEC
system.
Big Ten?
Let's
I'm
do
just
a
going to say it
BCS
again.
system.
I don't think just 2 buys passes. I don't think that passes. I think it's 4 that, I mean, you're going to have more. Like, it's just, this is what they tried to push. And then they've talked about it for 9 hours with no agreement. So if there's anything we know, it's that they are not in agreement. So whomever went to the media and leaked this idea, that's what they want.
Right.
Was that
Well,
Sankey with Dellinger or whoever?
Well, and that's clarified. We're only talking about the next 2 years. We're not
No,
even talking about
it's-
26.
no.
This is the 6 years.
This is for 26 and beyond.
This is afterward. But what you were just referencing, getting in the room together today to change the 4 buys, that would be for right now.
No, I'm talking about.
No.
I
That's
was just
2026 and
Yeah,
beyond.
we're getting confused. Everything we've talked about right now is for 2026 and beyond.
Okay, that's
The
what I
12
thought we
team
were.
is
And then
not
you mentioned
changing.
you meant well, I think it might though.
They had
And by
mentioned maybe expand
26
to 14, but this is something that they're talking about for because here's the thing. They need they're trying to sell the deal to ESPN for a 6-year term, which is for the next 2 plus 4. So, but they don't have to change the 12. And they're not going to have it ready to go by that either.
Right.
But it's for the deal.
And I'm glad you clarified that because I was hearing 2 things. So I'm glad you said that. Becky Go Huskies gives us super chat for $1.99 saying, how long until the big in the SEC go full Georgia Tech? And I'm going to drop that off of and introduce Bill Farley. Bill, can you answer that question? How long until the big in the SEC go full Georgia Tech?
I need a little background on that.
It's an inside joke.
Well, I know about the drinking game.
Okay, that's what it is.
I thought there was a little more to it.
It's really that simple.
No, that's how stupid
That
we
was
are.
it.
There is
Okay.
nothing. There's nothing else to it. All right, how you doing tonight?
Great. Hey, I
Awesome.
was listening to your discussion about the different configurations of the playoff.
Right.
And so I'm an Oregon State honk.
Yes, you are.
And
yet you have an Iowa State hat on. I'm finding that
I thought it was
there,
Big
Bill.
12. I thought I'd,
right on. Okay.
I appreciate it.
When we
Go
were in
Hawks,
Iowa,
but also, appreciate it.
Yeah, I bought this when I was in Iowa so I could pose as a local.
Nice.
Couldn't bear wearing a Hawkeyes hat. That just couldn't do that.
Okay. All right.
So I was thinking that with all this stuff that's coming out, Bomber, I was on your show and we talked about how Oregon State, they were holding that vote.
Right.
And, they hadn't got anything in 6 months prior to that vote. Nobody wanted to help them with conference scheduling. No Power 5 teams would help them. There just wasn't any help for Oregon State for 6 months. But this vote they were going to give, this was going to give them goodwill going forward. So the very next day, there's all this chatter about, some of this had been going on a little bit, was they're going to increase the number of conference games in the SEC, so less non-conference games for other people's schedule. And they're not going to schedule they're going to schedule G5. They're not going to schedule other Power 5 schools. And so there's all this stuff that going. I'm thinking from an Oregon State, Washington perspective, it just seemed like you're getting further and further away from that opportunity to compete at the Power 5 level.
Right.
And so I thought, well, maybe what they should have done was just, right away merge with the Mountain West and stuck with the extra 2 bids so that the G5s could have had 2 bids, because you got this 2-year span where there's going to be this enormous gap growing between the top 20 schools and everybody else. And so Oregon State, Washington State might have had a better chance for the playoff in the next 2 years with those 2 slots, and might have had a chance to build their brand to where they might be able to compete with not the Power 2, but everybody else, like the Big 12 teams. Maybe they could have done that. So I wonder if he needed to hold that card a little longer and see how all this other stuff played out.
Yeah. So the show we had was all discussing what he was going to do. And the very next day, what does he do? He gives his vote away pretty quickly. It didn't seem like there was much of a fight put up by Kirk Schultz. We talked about it for how many months, Immaculate, have we been tracking this vote of Kirk Schultz?
Seems endless at this point.
It does seem endless.
Like
whenever it was, like overnight, they twisted his arm or they sweet songed him. Have you heard anything about why that happened?
I think it was the ESPN threat to drop their one and only bid that they had at the time. That's a strong point. Like if what you're doing is going to cost everyone else at the table their one bid from a network,
Right.
that's a pretty big deal. I know people were kind of light arming this thing. Oh, that might not have happened. Maybe not. But if it did, that's probably what did it.
Anybody else want to add anything to that? I thought
Yeah,
the
I
timing
think
was awesome.
I think there was an agreement that they're the next two in.
Okay.
Regardless what happens, they're the next two
Into what?
into an A4 conference.
Yeah.
Um,
That would probably do the trick.
If the ACC backfills, they have to take Oregon State
Right.
and Washington State first.
Absolutely.
I agree.
That's kind of what the SMU move too, is by saying no one else now into the
Yeah.
ACC, a G5 is going to get paid. So it's basically saying, if you're right, that you do have to take Oregon State or Washington State if you want the full pay.
All right,
Yeah.
Bill, we had some noise or smoke, if you want to call it that, last night on Greg Pflugar's show about this $190 million payout number that was floated for the FSU to get out. And you'd looked into the private equity angle and how they could come up with the money. This is the exact same discussion we had with Washington State and Oregon State, and how long should they hold out before they give their vote. In your opinion, which is the worst downside or the biggest downside? Would it be for Florida State to just hold their cards and just move along, just expecting they're going to continue to win legal challenges and eventually, have a very minor payout out? Or is it the reverse? The risk is they lose. There's no way they can get out. And if they did, it's now codified. It's going to be like $450 million. It's somewhere probably in the middle. But what do you think about that?
I think they hold out. They have the three levers they're working is the litigation to drop the cost.
Right.
They have these private equity partners potentially, and I think it's very narrow. I think it's maybe on a hotel project. They're merchandising. They've got a medical, kind of a quasi-medical football operations building. So they've got that lever, and then they've got this bond issue that they've got, and that's broken up in three pieces. So they could probably start letting go. They can do the private equity stuff now to help raise money. They can do maybe one of the bond issues or two of the bond issues and keep those projects going. But I don't think they're endangering any of their expansion plans that they've got going on. In terms of holding those in order to have the resources to pay the fee. So I think they take the litigation as long as they can.
Hey, Bill,
Well,
so for the bond financing that you mentioned, what would Florida State be financing with a bond?
So they've got three main projects. They've got a stadium renovation, which I'm just going to say is $300 million. It's a little less than that. They've got a football operations facility, which is about $100 million. And then they've got a refunding, which is another $100 million. So they got $500 million in total. And I wasn't saying that they're going to carve out some of that $500 million. I was saying their interest rates this past year have been, like 3.9% to 4.5% on their borrowing. So my thought was they might be able to raise, if they get a good bid, and they've been getting about 10 bids for all their bonds that they put out, that maybe they'll have extra capacity with their cash flow to borrow extra money. So that was my point. Now, the fee part of it, to finance a fee. Now this goes way back, and I don't know Florida's laws, but in California, and when I was at Sacramento, we were able to finance a $50 million relocation fee to pay to the, of course they never came, to pay to the at that time Oakland Raiders. So we did convince the underwriters that we could finance a $50 million inducement fee, I think we called it. And so that didn't have anything that you could touch, but the underlying the underlying revenue source was something you could touch. So we had assets to pledge, we had revenue to pledge, but we had this extra, surplus amount that we could apply for an inducement fee for the team, which didn't work.
So in essence, to kind of repeat that back, would Florida State be using bond financing to finance the three ventures you were talking about, and then freeing up cash on hand to maybe pay an exit fee or fees to leave the ACC? Is that the idea?
That they might have that, say they estimated that they were going to borrow at 5%. and it comes in at 4.5%. On a $500 million issue, that's a lot of money. So that was a thought. And also in California and I think it was, I want to say Wisconsin. There's been a couple states recently where the entire system has underwritten the bonds. So San Diego State University's Snapdragon Stadium, that was underwritten not by revenue bonds for the stadium. It was written by the entire California State University system, which is a conglomeration of probably 10 universities, Fresno State, San Jose State, everybody. So that's a massive university system. So they get a better rate than a revenue bond where the investors are just looking and saying, well, we hope, the football team does well because we don't want to own a football stadium at the end of the day. We want some more guarantees than just revenue from a football stadium.
Moen, do you want to make sure that he's understanding what we're talking about with actually taking the buyout early and getting out, just cut it clean at 190 and walk away versus some of the other strategies we were talking about?
Right. For cutting it clean, you just want to cut it clean, get out of there as quick as you can, get into the Big Ten or the SEC, get all your onloading done with the conference, that sort of thing. So that would be the reason you would go at 190, 210, somewhere in that range, just to get it all over with. You can move on, they can move on, and everybody can kind of be happy with the situation.
I would, well, you can fact check me on this, but I would think a $200 million, if you have $200 million and your cost of funds was say 5%, that's probably going to be about a $10 million a year obligation if you're financing it, somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So with a program like Florida State, and I don't know their athletic budget, I'm going to say it's 150 million. It's probably a large one. So you're taking 8%, 7%, 8% of your budget to get out, and obviously you're thinking your budget's going to go up 30 million or so. And in their projections, in their bond projections, they're showing an increase of $40 million, but they're pinned it to the college football playoff, which I guess is a bust given the number that came out. And they also showed they showed cash expenditures in 2 years of $50 million each. So in the near term, like in the next couple of years, so they might be in all their cash flow and that they're putting forward to the bond financiers, they're showing $100 million expenditure that it wasn't identified what it was.
Exit fee.
Yeah.
That's what the implication is, right? That's
You'd think, you don't usually fat finger an extra 100 million.
Well, but you that would be a depreciating asset though, right? The longer you go, the value to buy out early it weakens, doesn't it? So if you stay in 4, 5, 6 years, now your impetus to get out doesn't necessarily meet your expectation because you've waited so much time, right?
Well, there's a couple things here. So like the decay of the contract, getting out today is more expensive than getting out tomorrow because time's gone by, right?
Right.
The time value too. So like if you wait it out for another year and everything, then it's going to be cheaper to get out next year than this year because the life of the contract's shorter, right? There's that one part of it. So that's a big idea there. But it's really interesting to see how Florida State's going to try to get out, and like Bill's outlined here, maybe using some type of creative bond financing to finance some projects on campus that they were going to pay some cash out of, perhaps, or something to free up cash to pay.
Yeah, they could
for the ACC exit. And also, like, how could you utilize private equity too? I heard you actually speak, Bill. You mentioned this, I think, on 24/7 a couple of days, and really how private equity could be involved in everything. And could you talk a little bit more about private equity stepping in and really how that would look possibly at Florida State?
Yeah, and I got a question on that, Joe, about comparing to the Live Golf, and it kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't even really think about Live to me is like they bought the whole golf.
They did. I wrote a check.
That was almost like an acquisition. So private equity, I try to, it's like a Shark Tank, right? So Florida State is walking out to the Sharks and saying, hey, I've got a football operations center that's going to have a multiple of medical uses, and you're going to have, maybe incubate some businesses. And, we value this business at $1 million. We want, 10%, you guys Sharks to come in with your expertise, buy 10% for $100,000. And now we're in a joint venture. So you brought in private capital with expertise to try to lift your revenue. And then hopefully your annual revenue is going to increase, and you might split it evenly 90-10 based on your ownership for the first, say, 15% return on your money. And then after that 15%, this is where the term waterfall comes in. So that kind of flows, the revenue flows like water. So after 15%, it flows to a next level. And that might go towards the managing partner, the expertise. They might get 50%, and you might split it 50-50 until a certain level. It can get extremely complicated. So that's one example. They have basically they call it a football operations center, but it's being managed by a healthcare entity. Is actually the investor that they're bringing in to manage the project. And I'm guessing that healthcare investor is putting some cash into that to reduce the amount of bond money that they have to use potentially. And maybe that bond money, as you were saying, could go towards the fee. The other two areas that I saw, they have one really explicitly on their marketing. They have it's a 97 3%. It's 3% private equity, 97% Florida State. So it's a minimal amount the way it's structured in the spreadsheets. And that's to do concerts, to do higher level seating arrangements at basketball and football. And they've got a lift in that revenue, and they're paying a fee to the entertainment company investor that's coming in, an annual fee of $500,000 to manage this investment. And then they're splitting it on the percentage of the ownership I don't get couldn't quite figure out the percentage, but they're splitting it one way for a while, and then they start splitting it more towards the entertainment investor. So I would expect, that seems odd to have just a 3% partner and pay them a $500,000 a year fee. That seems like you're not bringing in real much money into that.
Sure.
And then there's a hotel project they've got on the books. It wasn't mentioned specifically, but a hotel would be a natural for a private investor to come in and maybe ground lease the property. So Florida State gets ground lease revenue. They could borrow against that ground lease revenue and probably raise some money to pay a fee. Those were the three areas that I saw. I didn't see a huge, we're going to buy 30% of the football business. And they actually had a caution. One of the letters in the FOIA documents, there was a caution from one of the accountants in Florida State saying, hey, you can't go off the rails, here. We can't sell buildings. We got formal processes to liquidate assets or sell portions of assets. We can't just enter into a joint venture unless it's something real narrow like merchandising in that area.
So really, they are using these creative avenues like merchandising and going into a quasi business for merchandise sales to raise money with private equity rather than selling like a football rights per se or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see any hint of that in any of the documents. Now they had a lot of things blacked out, but they did have the two healthcare entities had PowerPoint presentations in the FOIA documents. They were all blacked out except who the businesses were, but there was nothing. They mentioned on the merchandising side, they had a specific slide that had the lift of revenue that would be split. So that lift of revenue was all merchandising, premium seating related, in those kind of categories.
Gotcha.
All right, we've got time to go through some Q&A. Are you up for that, Bill?
Sure.
All right, you never know what you're going to get in questions. So we go around the horn and
we just
see
go
if anybody
past.
has
Pass.
If you don't want to talk, you just say you pass. Yeah, no big deal.
Do what you want on the big freaking Friday show, Bill.
That's right. It's supposed to be a
Friday night.
We need to say some Georgia Tech, I think, a little bit. We haven't looped up enough tonight, guys.
Cheers.
So let's get a Georgia Tech drink and let's go from there. All right. Buckshot Kid, one of our members, says so many lawsuits, it's hard to keep up with what suit you're talking about. And I believe
Yeah.
the number's up to 29 now. Does anybody else have an updated number on lawsuits for the NCAA?
No, I ran when I ran out of fingers, I stopped counting.
I do. Hold on.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Evidently, Buckshot Kid, we do not know. You don't happen to know, do you, Bill?
I do not.
Okay. Well, nobody else does either. So
Yeah.
you're off a leash. All right. Here's another one. Edward Wayner says, can you see the NCAA as an organization just closing up shop and telling universities you are on your own? I would say no, because they want to protect their jobs. What do you guys think?
The NCAA is the universities. It's there is no NCAA without them. It's just it's turned into some universities versus the bureaucrats of the NCAA. But yeah, the NCAA telling universities to leave would basically cause them to, I don't know, maybe lose their charter. Right? I'm not sure exactly how that would work. It just that seems a little backwards.
Anybody else?
The NCAA will exist in the future. It's just going to be at a lower level. The NCAA will not go away. So when we talk about it falling apart and being gone, really, we're talking about the A4 and at the major college basketball and football level. There needs to have its own governance structure based on NIL and the new probably employment that's going to happen for student athletes. But the NCAA will still exist, Division II, III, etc. And they will have their own NIL programs, small NIL programs. I'm sure Charlie Baker is going to oversee all that. So they will still do their own thing, but at a much smaller scale and a much smaller level.
Bill, do you have a comment?
My only thought on that is the one restriction that they've got that really is hampering a lot of folks now that this revenue gap on football is growing so huge that carrying 16 teams, 14 of which are money losers, that restriction, hopefully that's going to get challenged at this point, because some schools that are at the bottom, kind of the Power Five, should they be trying to carry 16, 14 deadweight teams to try to make up the difference between the big revenue gap? So I hope that's something that's revisited.
Next question from Tony Lawson, who has been a member but isn't today. Tony, you need to take care of that. It says, does this mean Michigan and Spygate will have no penalty because the NCAA has no teeth mowing?
No, because the NCAA has no teeth on NIL. They don't have no teeth on cheating bastards.
Anybody else have a comment on this?
Michigan's going to get away scot-free for sure.
Most of the guys that were guilty are gone. I didn't even realize that Jim's son already had a position in the NFL too. So
he's
they're all gone.
Seahawks. Yep.
We'll know in 4 years. We'll know in 4 years.
There you go.
Right.
I like it. If we always know in 4 years, right? I like that. Nathan Campbell, one of our members, says, Bomber, that Fubo gets Belly Sports. Now Amazon owns part of Belly. Bally? I think he's talking Bally's, right?
Yeah, he's talking about the
Yeah. So when we talk about Bally's, and I was going to touch on this Fubo thing, but I want Bill to have a little more education on it before we really dive into it. But basically, we can cover the high points. Let me bring at least the header up so everybody can see what we're talking about. Bring it up here. All right, here we go.
More lawsuits.
More lawsuits. This one is actually, I'll just read it. Fubo TV files lawsuit over ESPN, Fox, Hulu, and Warner Brothers Discovery sports streaming venture, which was announced last week. And then it goes into, there's a lot of details there. I only read it once. I don't feel like I'm super educated on it. Does anybody have any opinions about that article?
Yeah, I do. Fubo TV should have sued YouTube TV if that was the case. There's been several of these streaming services since then that have come out. Sling,
right?
So I don't understand how you can say that they stole your idea, but you're going to let Sling TV and Hulu Live Sports. That's been a thing. YouTube TV with Sunday NFL Ticket. That's been a thing. You can't claim that you own streaming.
That's true.
and that's probably why Fox and ESPN felt comfortable enough to do this, is because there are so many in that space now that it can't be claimed to have a monopoly, so to speak.
Bill, do you have a comment on that one?
No, I don't know enough about that.
Okay, and that's totally fine. Next question from Rock and Rant, another one of our members, says the market will set the market and some will play and others will be like later. You guys know what he's saying there?
Yeah. We were talking about NIL at that point, about how
Okay.
NIL will now go unchecked. And he's
Oh,
100% right.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that?
General
I
market
think,
forces.
yeah, the obligations for college football teams are just stacking up. And, unless you get some relief in other areas to balance your budget, it's going to be very difficult for folks at the bottom.
Makes sense. Before I go to the next comment or question, I want to thank everybody for being here. Bill, thanks for coming on the show tonight. We've been wall-to-wall news, and we appreciate everybody that's left a comment, a super chat, or new membership. Please, again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, and turn on your notifications. That way you know when our shows will be happening next. All right. Laurel Weiss, another one of our members, says, if we don't have scholarships available, the player is a walk-on. To clarify that, Laura, what they're saying is they're taking scholarships to go to players that need a scholarship, and the ones that don't, that make millions of dollars in NIL, they don't need a scholarship. So that's all we were saying. They're able to have keep and retain better talent because the 85 scholarship limit does not apply.
Yeah.
Anybody?
They're finding NIL persons, or entities, whatever, to pay for all the expenses of someone that they want as an NIL athlete, so that they don't have to take up a scholarship.
Right.
So the top guys who get big NIL deals, it's not like they're using their own money to pay for a scholarship. They're getting that added on top of their NIL deals, and that then leaves open one of the scholarship spots. So they're essentially going around the rules with NIL to raise their roster numbers.
In other words, they're agreeing to contracts instead of taking scholarships.
Right. Yep.
That's exactly what you're saying.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
So they're going under contract with the NIL collective.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're playing.
There could be, theoretically, there could be 1,000 athletes at Ohio State that are under contract with the NIL collective, and only 80 of them have scholarships, and the rest are all walk-ons. But
you might see a Heisman Trophy winner who is a walk-on.
It's just nuts. This is nuts, guys.
As I understand it, with that NIL ruling, so the spring portal thing is kind of does that become moot? I mean, you could start signing people to NIL deals right now for the following year.
Hey, that's actually I'm going to follow up that, Bill, with and you can answer the question Bill just asked too, but I want to add to that. Does this this is the workaround of the 85 rule? It might change the size of these teams, how deep they may go, and the biggest thing is if they don't sign a NLI, National Letter of Intent, to go to a school, if they don't need a scholarship, can they just become a student and play?
Wow.
Right?
They have to.
It's a good question. Why
would you even sign a scholarship?
You wouldn't. You wouldn't even have to transfer rules.
You just landed on something, man. That's massive stuff right there. I'm serious.
I don't understand.
Do they even need to be full time? I mean, could they just sign up for 6 units?
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
If you don't have the restrictions of scholarships, if you don't have the restrictions of number of players on a team, who's to say they have restrictions on what they could give to a regular student?
It's just based on the language of the contract with the collective.
So
we're learning as we go. It's great questions but we don't have those answers. I mean, we're going to learn as this happens.
Will you write that down and we'll bring that up. I'm going to talk to, hey, Bill, you'll be in that conversation. We'll do that in that conciliary channel and we'll talk about it because
we could just watch what Tennessee does.
Well, Tennessee's part of that, right? But I'm talking about circumventing the whole system.
They've been out front on pushing the envelope. So I thought
it's true. Well, fair point. You're right. But I'm just thinking these letter of intent days, these signing windows, these transfer restrictions. If you're not tied to a scholarship,
why would you bind yourself to a scholarship if you're a 5-star athlete?
You wouldn't need to.
You wouldn't need to, and that would be a poor business decision.
You don't have to meet the educational requirements. You don't have to meet anything if you're not a scholarship student. Look, this is how back in the day, and I've been in hospitals more probably than you guys are even alive, except for Moen and maybe Bill. But in hospitals, the way they used to control drugs wasn't by getting scripts written to patients. It was by the pharmacies doing the policing. So once the pharmacies got out of the policing business and you could go from pharmacy to pharmacy with stuff, there was no restriction. And it really blew everything up. It changed the entire dynamic. They had to change laws to make it different. So I don't see this as any different. Anyway, you've got that written down. We'll come back to that, okay?
Yeah, we got to come back to that one.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Bill, for clarifying that. I didn't even draw the correlation to Tennessee. It's exactly right. All right, let's see here. Becky, go Huskies. Good to see you, Becky. Congress can't agree to a compromise of anything. It'll die in either the House or the Senate because that's what they do. Anybody disagree
Congress
with
is
that?
not saving the NCAA.
No,
I'll
they're
second.
not.
I'll second the motion.
Is Moen needs to be muted? Is that
No,
one
he
here?
did. He did.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he muted
All right.
himself.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah, Becky, you're exactly right. They can't agree to do anything, unfortunately. Let me get a shout out here to drag down Ryan Willie. He's been a member for 2 months. Thank you very much for your loyalty, Ryan. We really appreciate it. If
Winner.
There we go.
There
Moen
he
is
is.
here.
All right, he made it back.
He says players will want playing time. We were talking about players being 4th and 5th string. The best way they can get into the league is get some training someplace and go to another school and start. Bill, do you have any comments about that strategy?
We did pick, Oregon State did pick up some FCS players. And I imagine if they do well, like they did at Oregon State, had Aiden Childs did really well just in brief appearances, and he went on to Michigan State. So I think we'll be taking some from the below us, and we'll be feeding people up. That's just going to be the way it is. Hopefully, you can get them to stay around for bowl games, but that's a question mark.
Anybody else want to say anything about that? All right. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your super chat. Thank you very much. No, not a super chat, but your member chat. I really appreciate it. Scott White in Florida says, just look at scholarship limits before 1973. There were none. Nebraska would offer scholarships to a Nebraska high school player just so they wouldn't go to K-State or Iowa State. Nebraska had 150 scholarship players. And I will just say, when I used to watch those Tom Osborne 1970s and 80s and some of the 90s football teams and you Big Ten guys, I'm not sure how much you weren't even born yet, but those teams were loaded with the biggest human beings I think that could play football. Nebraska was number 2 every year. It was insane. Anyway, all right.
It's kind of silly why people compare Nebraska of now to Nebraska of then. Like, it's just 2 entirely different systems.
I think he's more just stating.
No, he is.
Yeah.
I'm saying in general, though, like people try to compare Nebraska now to back when Nebraska was dominant back in those days, and that was just, like you're saying, like, it was just a much different system. They basically just ran over people by doing that.
You want to add anything to that, Bill?
No, it was the stock. We called it stockpiling back then. A lot of schools did it.
Right. Football was different back then. There's no doubt about that.
Need bigger locker rooms.
Yeah, that's true. Rock and Rant, especially because steroids, right? Everybody was bigger too. Rock and Rant, one of our members says, I can't believe that ESPN ACC have me rooting for Florida State.
That is a Miami Hurricane, guys.
That's a Hurricane.
That is a Hurricane fan saying he's on the Knowles bandwagon.
That is fantastic.
ESPN is a creep, in this whole thing, right? ESPN's kind of like
100%. 100%. Thank you, Moen. Kenneth Evans says the felony talk made me question who wrote this briefing last night. So did you? And we reviewed it earlier, and I'm sure you saw it before. But what did you think about that little treatise that ACC tagged onto? ESPN tagged onto the ACC filing.
Is that for me?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Bill. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, felony. That's just stunning. I've never seen anything like that in a complaint. I mean, that was shocking. I guess there's a saying, if you don't have the facts on your side, you pound the table. There's something along that line. That seemed like just a desperate act to maybe get a public institution and maybe elected officials associated with that public institution to think twice, but I don't see it having an effect.
Yeah, I would agree.
No.
You guys have any different comments?
Seemed like they were trying to ride that fine line of basically breaking the law themselves
Yeah.
to suggest that this could be a thing, but we're not going into that now. So it's not the right time. It was just really poor form. I kind of wonder if ESPN even knew that their lawyers are going to do that.
It was the last day to file.
Yeah, like was that just
It was
thrown
the
in there?
exact last day they could
I know.
file.
But I kind of wonder, like the lawyers filed it, but I wonder if they threw that in there with like if ESPN said put that in there because ESPN is the one that will be held accountable for that, not the lawyers that wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kenneth. Appreciate it. Good comment. Carrie for $4.99, another super chat. Thank you so much, Carrie. $200 million to reward bad behavior. That's my point. Why would we? Nobody should be cheering for Florida State to settle for $200 million. I mean, it's just it's like the O.J. Simpson trial, man. You can't look away. That's must see TV.
That's a loss for Florida State, a massive loss. If they pay $200 million at this point getting out of the ACC, you cannot do that. I mean, that is a massive chunk of money. Like it needs. I think that Bill was on the nose here. Like we don't know exactly what the redaction on the documents that he reviewed, but there were 2 installments, basically payments of $50 million each in their projected financials.
Right.
And you just have to think like, hey, is it really around $100 million they're kind of thinking to get out? That's half of $200 million, obviously. That seems way more in line and more appropriate given all like where the trajectory of this lawsuit is going.
Well, Moen's giving me hand signals. So
yeah. I just wanted to go back to the felony thing.
Oh, right.
Joke used to be in the 90s. You can't spell felon without NOLE. And I want to just play my sound effect for my man Carrie there.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
I appreciate it, Carrie. Thank you for the super chat. All right, that's fantastic. All right, let me get back up here. We had so many good comments. We're over 1,000 comments again.
Hey, Bill, I'm curious. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier. What do you think the dollar amount, if you had to put a ballpark on it, that FSU actually pays to get out of the ACC at the end of the day? When it's all said and done, if you had to throw a number.
So I would say I like the $100 million number. Now, you guys with Texas and Oklahoma, where did they end up?
50 each.
50 each.
Yeah. That was everything. That was all inclusive. That was the ESPN, Fox contracts, and the escape from the Big 12. It really was a huge discount. It could have been $250 million.
Yeah.
So
$100 million. That seems like as good a guess as any.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Immaculate Ramon, you want to say anything to that? Sorry.
Okay. No, I mean price wise, I still think it's going to be down. Farther down, maybe more than what I was saying before, around the $100 million. They might pay a little bit more just to get out now,
right?
So they can start making their plans for the future. And it's, but the 200 still seems a bit high to me.
Daniel Gygax, another one of our members, says, could there be a salary cap if there's a collective bargaining agreement?
Possibly.
Ute is shaking your head up and down.
Yeah, that's right, Daniel. And like the collective bargaining agreement would be probably at the conference level. So the Big Ten would establish, collective bargaining on half of the Big Ten, and the players would be on the other side, the Players Association for the Big Ten. And you could determine caps at that point, but it'd probably be conference to conference. So there would have to be some type of governance agreement between the SEC and the Big Ten and all the other parties, like the Big 12 too, on what that would look like. There's been pushback against that too, based on free market ideas and everything. And I know Ohio State's not a big fan of that because they have a huge bankroll. And so it's an advantage for them to have no salary cap. So I'd love to get Moen's thoughts too on it.
Yeah, I think, come on, we got to let the free market decide things.
I have a hard time seeing all the players agreeing to that as well, because particularly the top athletes, do they really want a salary cap? I guess you just need a majority, but
I think there needs to be a salary cap to keep competitive balance, but it's probably
but then the coaches too.
Impossible. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things they could try. They haven't tried any of them. Let's see here. Nathan Campbell, following up on that other comment, says Bomber eventually Fubo will become Amazon Prime Sports. Just to complete that thought, I wanted to make sure we got that. Kimchi pancake. I had kimchi once. I can't not imagine it being in a pancake. Says must settle. Discovery at trial is risky. And you know how we learned that? We learned it from the Pac-12, how Discovery was risky and they finally settled. So, Bill, do you have a comment about that one? I know you does.
Yeah. So the FOIA document, the public records that Seattle Times got, did show kind of glimpse into some of the dark side of the discussions or the misinformation that was being given to beat reporters. What was actually going on behind the scenes. I have a couple requests in for all that documentation. It's been 6 months now since I put it in. I haven't got it yet. So they definitely don't like that dirty laundry coming out. Especially if you're, an athletic director and your whole objective of making these deals was to try to get a promotion to the next level or get a higher salary. You don't want that to be spoiled.
Oh, sorry, Mac.
Go ahead, Mac.
I was going to say, I remember Bob talked to us about this, and he said that the networks are probably better situated for Discovery than the conferences are because they go through this so much more.
Right.
Yeah. But here's the but. I kind of think that maybe in this case, if we were to ask him again, he might say this is a special circumstance where that's not the case, since it's ESPN that is definitely wanting that deal sealed and saying it's like, what do they call it? There's, well, they want it sealed. So there's some information there that they don't want to get out. And, well, that would probably come out in Discovery, I would think. So in this case, that might definitely be something that ESPN does not want. Whereas normally you might say that the conferences aren't as prepared for it as the networks.
Okay, so who's at more risk here, the ACC or Florida State?
At this point in time, the ACC.
The ACC a lot more, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, who has the leverage?
No, it's Florida State.
Florida State.
There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it, right? And so time goes by, more pressure builds because
just how much time do they have though?
They've got 13 years on this contract.
Not if they want to get in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is saying get this done.
The Big Ten is going to invite Florida State this year, next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. They're in. They bring enough value to the Big Ten. They're in whenever they want to get in. It's all about how much money you're paying to get out of the conference. And as time goes by, that exit fee amount decreases because the ACC has a lot of leverage on them, a lot of pressure, based on this comment right here by Kimchi Pancake. Great name, by the way.
It is a great name. Bill, did you want to add anything to that?
Nothing to add on that. No, sounds good.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm just scrolling through. Man, so many good comments tonight, guys. Larry, the GM, another one of our members. Good to see you, Larry. Will the collectives go away with funding from the athletics department?
Some of them. You'll see a lot of these schools have multiple collectives. If the money starts to dry up, they all probably can't stay in business. So I would definitely say some of them. There might end up being like one or two that do some smaller work, but they're going to dry up considerably.
Anybody else? I think that's the real struggle right now, especially with schools that aren't in the top two conferences, is the funding that's going to NIL now was stripped away from the money that used to be going directly to the university.
Yep. And they're trying to get it back.
Yeah, now that money, there's a pull and push for that money. And meanwhile, the building projects at these schools, development projects are being held up because those original donations have dried up. So,
except at Oregon.
Well, we know
they've got plenty of money. They can cover everything.
Okay, when are you going to start getting some of that NVIDIA money at Oregon State?
I know.
Did you see the market cap just went to $1.2 trillion today?
Yeah, he did put $50 million into a computer science lab at this school.
That doesn't win football games.
I know. I guess he was a tennis player.
Holy cow, come on, dude.
Just missed.
Look, we've got our own issue. It's not in the trillions, but Ryan Smith, Qualtrics, he's a BYU grad, and yeah, he's given it to baseball, he's given it to some other stuff, but football has not been his thing. So
I wish they there's the conventional wisdom is you got to pay people. Sponsors have got to pay to sponsor the football program.
right.
In that case, I think if we could get NVIDIA, if we could just use their logo, use their brand, use their
Right.
technology, use their game simulation, just have them in the locker room. I know they're not quite as active now in the gaming chip area as they used to be, but I'd let them into for free if I was Oregon State, just to try to attach yourself to that brand.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Timothy Green, longtime member of the channel, says, I have a question. This is to everybody. How long do you think it will be before the ACC breaks completely up, or even if they do? Bill, you're the guest. What do you think?
Well, Florida State, I think, is months, weeks and months, and then the followers are months and maybe a year. So I would say, I'd say in a year we'll have a good idea of if they're going to Pac-12 or not. But they'll lose the top brands, and then if they can hold it together.
Immaculate.
I don't think the ACC ever breaks up because there's not enough landing spots for enough schools.
Yeah.
It is even when schools go to the Big 12, it's still going to be that next conference to where there's no better place to go. They'll be the place for other schools to then come up into. It then becomes a question of what will the ACC be at that point? Will they still be A4? Will they who they backfill with is, to me, is the bigger question rather than whether they break up or
not. Moen?
Yeah, I agree with Immaculate. The ACC stays together.
Is it a power conference? Follow on.
They'll be guaranteed A4 status, I think.
Interesting.
They'll get one automatic bid. I agree with these guys that it's going to survive. I think that the name is going to change because Oregon State and Wazoo are going to get into this next iteration of the ACC after the break happens. So it's not going to go full Pac-12 per se, but it's going to be weakened. But that's going to provide an opportunity for the Beavers and the Cougars to jump in and realign with Cal and Stanford. So what if it's like the Atlantic Pac Conference, the AP Conference?
What if it's the All Coast Conference?
Yeah, like seriously. The name probably needs to change because you're going to have 4 teams out in the West Coast now and maybe elsewhere. But it's going to exist. I don't see it just completely falling apart like the Pac did.
I think they've got to get at least, there's so many complications with financing right now with all these employee salaries and NIL and everything, but I would think they got to at least get $15 million to be half of what the Big 12 is to be considered a power conference. If they only pull in $5 million or something like the Mountain West, then that to me is the marker.
Bill, can I ask you this question? Oh gosh, I love how we have Bill on here. We can talk finance subjects here. Okay,
you're the one who's so excited. I
know.
Stop. 1 second. I gotta go. So let me sign off, and then you can dive into that. First of all, Carrie says, "Hey guys, Jenna's watching, so let her in here. Are you guys gonna stick around? I can send her an invite."
Yeah, it's just Bone.
It's up to you guys.
Oh, she's the lawyer, right?
Yeah, but no, you can stay, Bill. I'm just saying I'm leaving. So
if Moen wants to run it, I'm okay.
Is Moen, are you logged in admin then?
Yeah, I'm logged in admin. I'm a little drunk, but I'm okay.
That's okay. Let me send everybody just relax 1 second. Let me send Jen Santy. All right, Jen, I'm sorry I have to leave, but if you want to join these other guys, you're more than welcome. There's the invite. Okay. And,
hey, Bill,
Carrie,
whenever you did Jet, that's fine too. We'll just Q&A here for another 15 minutes or so.
Bill's good at telling us when he wants to leave, I promise. Really quick, hey, Jen is watching, so let her in here. That's a super chat. Thank you very much, Carrie. All right, everybody, I'm going to take off. There's over 100 people in here watching. Stick around. Just because I'm leaving does not mean the party ends. They're going to continue to talk realignment, FSU, and everything else in between. College football playoff. Appreciate being here. Everybody have a great weekend. If you're drinking, don't drive. And we'll see everybody on Monday at 8 Eastern for the Big West Mafia show. Other than that, I'm going to sign out. See you guys later. Thanks for coming on, Bill. Really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Night, Bomber.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Peace.
so
See you
Bill.
later.
Okay, so say that the ACC were to lose Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, UNC, the 4 biggest brands in the conference. Right now, the ACC is valued per school media distributions around 30 to 35 million approximately.
Yeah.
What if you had a ballpark evaluation on the remaining teams that's stuck around on a renegotiation? What would you say?
I would say, I'm just going to say 15. And the reason I say 15 is when the Pac-12 broke up, it kind of stratified. So you had USC and UCLA getting, the 60 million. And then you had the Oregon, Washington kind of next with 30 million with a promise of 60. And then you had the 4 corner schools getting 30 from the Big 12. And then you had Cal and Stanford getting, I guess, 10 million, somewhere in that range. And then Oregon State and Washington State 0. So that kind of helps us stratify what, and I think Bob had actually in another article, maybe a year and a half ago, had predicted that kind of per team valuation. So, I would think it'd be somewhere in that range, average around 15 million. It's not going to be 30, not going to be 0.
Yep, that makes sense. Around 15. When you're looking at that small of a number too, that has to trigger some decision making for the likes of other schools, maybe jumping into the Big 12 and elsewhere too. So, yeah, that seems right.
I would say Oregon State has been at a $50 million deficit with Oregon for the past 10 years per year in terms of spending, and they've been able to compete. They've won at home the last 2 years, and so you can compete with a big gap occasionally. It's not consistently. It'd be when you get a good coach and it just things break your way. So when you have teams that are all in that $15 million range, they're I would think they're a Power 4, but once, like you said, one spot is probably what they're going to get. And your schools are going to have a good year every 10 years or so, I imagine.
Gotcha. Moen, do you want to look at some more comments?
Sure can. Try and figure out where he left off because he didn't unstar anything.
All right, let me go through.
Let me see.
Actually, that's right where we're at. We have a lot built up.
Beautiful.
Nice.
We'll try and bust through these guys. Agree with Immaculate's comment about NIL for walk-ons with no limits. Will be just like before 1973. It was really bad for lesser schools, and why they put the limit on scholarships after 1973.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take that long for them to actually act upon this. It's just one of those things they're going to let get ugly so that everyone goes, please save us. Okay, here we go. Just give us the autonomous governance and we'll make these new rules and make everything okay. But it's going to get ugly before it gets better.
Either you guys have anything to say on that, Bill, or
nothing to add on that? No.
Okay. Here we go. FSU appears to have the high ground. Paying $200 million seems silly right now. That's from Kenneth Evans.
Agree.
Yep.
Agreed.
Disagreed.
Oh,
Moen thinks that 200 is a fair price.
So
the correct answer is $200 million to get out now. Play in 2025. All right, Jen's here. I'm going to add Jen. She's primping herself, but that's okay.
What's up, Jen?
Jen.
Hey,
Jen, the Florida State gal, is here in the house, guys. You asked for her. She's here.
you ask, you shall receive.
Like
I'm here.
we have to get a comment on the felony statement.
We need a comment on the felony and this one too. This comment right here from Kenneth Evans. Like, how much is FSU going to actually pay to get out of the conference?
So, I have actually thought about that. Can y'all hear me okay? Because my
We can hear you.
okay, good. My AirPods were acting up a little bit. Okay. You know what? I think it's gonna be around that 120, 150 number myself. I just think Florida State wants out, and I think if the ACC gives them that out, they're gonna take it rather than go to court and do all these things, because I think they want to go ahead and start this process pretty quick. I could definitely see that happening, but I could also see, like them dragging it out to get out for less. I do think that the ESPN felony comments kind of show you that ESPN knows that Florida State is not that they're going to the Big Ten, guys. I think that's just the way it is. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, I don't know. I think ESPN, look, the felony stuff was crazy for me because it's like, this is a civil case and you're starting to throw around felonies. It's wild. It's wild. So I don't know. Y'all tell me what you think about the felony comments, because I loved it. Like, bring us back to being the villain. That means we're back. We're back, baby. We're back.
That one comment basically made everything else kind of melt away. Once I saw that, I just stopped paying attention to the rest, and I couldn't get my eyes off of that.
It was kind of crazy because you think like attorneys, like, I don't know, that is such a loaded word to use, really, when you're filing anything. And I don't know. I think that was kind of, yes, it was very desperate, very thirsty, very drunk girlfriend texting you at 12 o'clock in the morning. Very, you were supposed to call me back and you didn't, that just seems so juvenile, so high school.
Like, how dare you?
Like, are you talking to other boys? Like, don't ever talk to other boys. And it's like, you want to say, you are the other guy. Like, you're not the main guy. You're the other guy. And you're telling me not to talk to other boys. That's weird.
It would be minimum security, though, right? I mean, if it was a felony.
I would think so.
Minimum security. Yeah.
Hopefully not, the security that like Jeffrey Epstein got, but like I would say white collar security.
I say it gets pled down to a misdemeanor, guys. Come on.
Pickleball.
Let's be serious here.
I mean,
it's not, you're not going to get a class A felony. Come on, man. This is going to get like misdemeanor 1 with some probation and community service. That's it.
Yeah.
Slap on the wrist.
Like I said, it was so wild to me to see that, like the felony. And I was like, oh, hello. I just wanted to like have that Steve Buscemi meme where it's like, hello, fellow young kids. And then someone changes to like, hello, fellow felons. Like, what are you doing today?
Well, it's just, it's weird because I said earlier, right? You can't spell felons without NOLE.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're happy with
here's
that.
The thing, though. If this was private lawyers using that terminology against a school that actually has had an AG speak up for them and say, we need these documents, it's just, it's kind of like, who are they actually talking to? I mean, it almost seems like you're stepping on the toes of that AG that got involved, because that's who actually determines if things could maybe be a felony, not some private lawyers.
Exactly. Or it would be, or maybe like a federal judge or something could come in, but you aren't even there yet. You're not even there yet, and you're throwing around felons. It just, again, screams drunk texting at night. It really does to an ex. I don't. It seems so desperate, so thirsty, so just honestly beneath ESPN. It seems like it was beneath ESPN to do this.
Kenneth Evans says, let me get to this here real quick, Jen, and I'll let you go on about drunk texting and sending nudes and all that stuff. This case is more about punitive withdrawal fees, fiduciary duty, and bad faith rights negotiations, and less about gore validity.
Yeah.
That's a good summary right there. Yeah. There we go.
Pretty fair.
All right, Jen, what do you think? You agree?
Look, it just seems like it was more about everything is happening the way we've predicted it was going to happen. And this is just ESPN being upset about it.
There you go.
I
think that sums it up perfectly. ESPN is a jilted lover.
Yep. I mean, that's really all I can say because you can't sit here as ESPN and ESPN, which got in trouble, by the way, with the Big 12 for tampering, right? Oklahoma and Texas went to the SEC. Would ESPN be jumping in this if Florida State was being really talked about in the SEC? I don't think so.
That's exactly what this comment's saying by Laura Weiss. Will the lawsuit impact where FSU goes? I'm curious, Bill, what do you think about that? Does this lawsuit impact where FSU might land?
I don't see a connection to them other than the motivation of the lawsuit and the desperation from ESPN is an indicator of where it's going. But I don't see the lawsuit itself having any impact of whether they go SEC or Big Ten.
I think the CFP had more determination of that than this lawsuit.
Yeah.
So maybe ESPN's reaction also helps push them more towards the Big Ten, but the lawsuit itself that was mainly to get them to actually have the choice.
Right. We got a super chat here from John D.
Nice.
The
JD.
uncertainty for FSU means paying $190 million now is the best option. Drag it out, and any money saved is negated by the unrealized revenue from the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that's what you've been saying, Moen, is that it's worth the price right now to get in and get started with the Big Ten money versus the ACC money. And I think after all of this, I don't think FSU's taken a minor cut with the Big Ten. I think that they're getting full pay from the get-go because of what they're making possible. Whether or not, it's not a statement on FSU's actual value, but the value of what they're making possible.
I agree with that. And but I also will say that with this ESPN statement to me, I do think the SEC is going to try for Florida State. I didn't really think it a month ago. I do think it now. I think they're going to play some defense. But I think Florida State is so invested in going to the Big Ten. I don't think it'll matter at this point. You didn't see these type of statements with ESPN regarding Oklahoma and Texas when they were trying to get out of their grant of rights, right? You didn't see this type of felony charges. Why? Because they were going to the SEC. So ESPN didn't care.
It's very shady. Yeah, go ahead.
If ESPN wants them in the SEC, then they can just pull the plug on the ACC, right? They can say, we're not going beyond 2027.
I don't know that they'll do that to Clemson, though. I don't know that because at the end of the day, right now, they still have that contract till 2027. They still need people to watch, right? I don't know that they want to give the other schools that actually bring eyeballs to the ACC network an out at this point, because what are they going to do? They really do only show like women's lacrosse or like whatever during the day anyway on the ACC network, and nobody really watches. But when they do watch Florida State and Clemson. And we all have eyeballs. We can see what the views are, and we know what it is. So I don't know that they would absolutely just pull the plug in order to just get Florida State to the SEC. Because, maybe they would if that means Clemson would go too, and then they would just kill that two birds with one stone. But to me, it kind of tells me that these rumors about Notre Dame really kind of starting to rethink some things might be true, and it could be Florida State, Notre Dame to the Big Ten, and everything's over.
Really? You think Notre Dame is number 20?
I don't know.
Okay, well.
So-
make sure everybody clips that, because
Yeah,
Jen
you
just
can
said
clip
Notre
it.
Dame is
I didn't
20.
say it was happening. I said those are the rumors, and I'm just saying, like, if ESPN really thought that Florida State and Notre Dame were going to the Big Ten, isn't that their best option, was to just start throwing haymakers?
Well, here's why. I'll just tell you why I don't think a Florida State Notre Dame match is what it is. If the Big Ten wants to go beyond 20 ever, like ever, what you need are good pairings, and you don't want to take your two top value possibilities, which Florida State and Notre Dame are right now. You don't want to pair them together because it really limits what they can do in the future. You want to take a Notre Dame and put one school with them. You want to take a Florida State and put, ready, here it comes, Georgia Tech with them.
Oh,
Good call.
People have been calling for it in chat. It's like, it's got to be said on the show. So there we go. But that's what you got to do. You got to take those two and pair other schools with them. Because if you put them together, it's very much going to limit what they can do with the networks.
hey, Moan, look in the private chat, and there's a link right there. See if you can pull the link up and share the screen. 190. Let's go back to 190. So John's question here: 190, is that the best option? Just to pay the 190 to get out, or drag this sucker out? See if we can get this pulled up. But Bill actually mentioned earlier, we were kind of spitballing what we thought the athletic department for Florida State netted in 2023, and this will tell us right here. All right. If you want to scroll down and go to Florida State.
Successful that I did that.
Nice
hold on,
job. Yeah. So
the,
scroll down a little bit and hit Florida State.
Scroll down and hit Florida State. Where is Florida State?
Down a little bit more.
Hey, you. Here we go.
They're in alphabetical order, so.
Yeah. I accidentally.
No worries. So the gist of it is Florida State's athletic department in 2023 netted, not just football, but everything, $170 million. There it is, right there. So we're talking like, okay, we're saying 190 million. Oh yeah, it's not that much because these schools have endless supplies of money. Incorrect. The whole athletic department netted 170 million in 2023. So $200 million is a massive sum of money to pay back. And like as Bill's mentioned it too, the interest rates too, depending on how you're financing that sucker, it's not going to be cheap to do it. I'm saying that it's actually too expensive to do it. And Florida State's not going to do it at 190 to 200 million. I think it's going to be significantly less. I think it's going to be around $80 million because I have all the leverage in the world. But this gives you some idea right here. 170 million for the entire athletic department. This just isn't football. So 190 is a big number, guys.
I mean, you guys know the details of like what percentage of that you have to pay back per year. Do you get 20 years to pay it back? All that kind of stuff. I really can't get into, but even with that case, if it's 10 million that you have to pay a year, then people might look at that and say, well, that's not a lot if you're making 190. It is, because most of the 190 is already balanced out. They already know what they're budgeting it towards and where it's going. So you're basically, even for just 10 million a year, you're going to be looking at, okay, what are we not paying for? Or unless you got your private equity that comes in, right, Bill?
Well, I think if they're going to get an extra $30 million in the media deal, you'd be taking 10 of that if it was amortized to meet that. So you'd be up 20.
All right,
from
there
where
you
are
go.
now.
So they could. So is that how much we'd be thinking though? At like 200 million, that the payments per year would be 10 million, like on the financing for that?
Yeah, somewhere around that. If their cost of funds is 5%, that's a ballpark number.
Right, of course. But all right, well, that's feasible. But I also if you don't have to do that, it'd be better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
cut that in half. It'd certainly be much more amenable to the future.
Yeah, I mean, you think about USC and UCLA, they're getting a full share, but they've got $10 million of extra travel expenses. Yeah. Florida State's probably not getting a big bump or not increase in travel expenses with this conference. Now that I say that, I think there was like $2 or $3 million a year they added in their spreadsheets that showed additional expenses. So they're not taking the hit that USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington are in travel.
Yeah, like Bill mentioned here, this based on what he's estimating an interest rate would be. It's at current dollar amounts and stuff. So not including what the new money would be in the Big Ten, but it'd be like a 10-year payoff essentially at to break even. But if you're factoring in things like increased ticket sales, obviously the media rights money and everything, it's probably quicker. You probably can essentially pay that exit fee off in 5 years, like approximately. But really, do you even need to do that? I mean, if you stretch this out for another 3, 6, 9 months, destabilize more, make it out for 100,000, 80 million, 100 million, then all of a sudden, like basically you can break even in 2 years. Like it just is financially viable to do that. That's a good business strategy.
Could you do the exit fee first, get out, and then pay off the grant of rights second? Is that a possibility?
The problem with doing that is the grant of rights is what binds the media. Like, so you wouldn't own your media content.
Correct.
So
You wouldn't.
the Big Ten wouldn't add you because you haven't unbound your media content for them to show your game. So they would be getting no value at all until you unbind the grant of rights. You'd have to do that in tandem.
All right. Good discussion. I didn't get most of it, but now I want to order pizza. Laura Weiss with a question. Who leaves after FSU? And this is a question for everybody. Who is the next person to leave the ACC after Florida State University?
Good question. Who wants to go first? All right, I'll say it. North Carolina.
All right.
And where do they go, though?
SEC.
Yeah, I agree.
You?
I think it's Miami. I think Miami goes with Florida State, and Miami gets a 50% revenue share, while Florida State gets 100% revenue share.
Oh my God, my trolling would be so on point for that.
No, I'm serious about that.
That's
Like,
literally what I was just thinking. I was like, Jen is going to give them so much help.
Oh my God.
I think it's
It'd be
going to
like
be a
Christmas.
situation like the Pac where Florida State's the first to go. Then all of a sudden you wait it out a little bit if you're the big. There's so much destabilization, just like with Oregon and Washington. Miami is like, hey, I'm getting out of here. I want to get in the Big Ten. And they end up taking a deal like Oregon and Washington. And I think Clemson gets the same 50% deal too in the Big Ten. So I think FSU gets 100%, 50-50. And of course, Notre Dame's going to come along at 100%. So there's your 22 for the Big Ten.
All right. Wild Youth's got to head out here. So if you want to have any final words here, Wild Youth.
No, fun discussion. I love it. I know we kind of dorked out with some finance stuff, but hey, that's really relevant in these. Good time as always. So yeah, have a good weekend, guys.
Appreciate you.
Good
We'll look
night. Have a
forward to
good
that
weekend.
Wild Ute. Yeah, we'll look forward to that Wild Ute University tomorrow on the University of Miami to the Big Ten.
Nice. Take care.
All right.
See ya.
And then there were 4.
And then
That'll be a short video, though.
We gonna power through these questions that we got.
I'm gonna try here, brother. Let
All
me.
I'm with you.
I'm
until
not
you're
that
like,
drunk yet. I can see all 8 of you. First, let's get to some super chats. Jen, do you think they'll settle before August?
Yes.
That's from Ryan Willie. Jen says yes.
Yes.
So Jen says yes, so we'll just go with it.
Look, I mean, I don't know that you'll have a full number amount, but I think they will be let out before August. And I do think Florida State will play in their new conference in 2025.
Fair enough. Carrie with another $10 super chat.
Carrie is the champion.
Let him
today.
cook.
Man,
Let him cook now.
it's the
Let
Carrie
him
show.
cook.
Letting them cook. If the top 2 ACC teams leave, there's no way you rewarded them with 2 playoff spots. Which I will go ahead
Yeah,
and say.
go ahead.
Here we go. ACC will rebuild with Duke, Wake, Boston College, Syracuse, Cal, Stanford, SMU. Add the 3 military schools: Air Force, Army, Navy. Mix in Rice, Tulane, USF, and UConn. That would be your rebuilt ACC. Would you guarantee them 2 playoff spots?
Nope.
What about you, Bill? I'm going to also put Oregon State and Washington State in there.
Yeah, I think Oregon State, Washington State, we're just, unfortunately, we're Pacific time zone and we're so remote. I'd love them to be there, but I just don't see it. No, that's a G, and those G5 teams aren't going to get any money. So no, you're not going to add that many G5 teams and get 2 spots.
Okay.
Here-
What do you
here's
think,
the thing.
Immaculate?
We can look at this and go, yeah, there's not the right value there. And then we can look at this and say, but there's a political reality to the CFP, and that requires agreements. And so if that's already been agreed upon that they get to, I think inertia wins, momentum wins, and there's a good chance that they can still keep it. If it hasn't been agreed upon by the time this all breaks loose, then there's much less chance of them getting it. So if it's decided before this happens, yes. If it's decided after, then no.
One slot would be better than the five G5 schools get, so they'd be on better ground than everybody. But
yeah, but it would take a vote to remove it, a unanimous vote. Whereas to make it,
we're talking for the second year.
Yeah, like if say they make this new system, they set it up, they get it going, and it has 2 spots for the ACC, and then this breakdown happens, like we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
you have to get a unanimous vote to remove it, to change it. But if this whole exit and rebuild happens before they get the situation decided, then I agree, it gets harder to give the ACC the 2 games. So timing is going to matter, is what I'm saying.
All right.
Well, I guess my question would be is if off one of those 2 ACC teams that are supposed to get in, if their quarterback gets hurt, what happens then?
This is purely theoretical, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Well, they'd be left out, obviously.
Well, but
Kirk Herbstreit would make the call.
But will ESPN go out before he even gets hurt and call for them to be left out? I'm just wondering what happens to these 2 teams that are supposed to get a spot.
Well, if Alabama does not get the 5th spot, then yes, that team would be left out. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice.
Hashtag Georgia Tech to the Ivy.
Yes.
Daniel Gygax, our friend from West Virginia. So will the AAC fall apart then? Yes,
Good
they
question.
will. They absolutely
will backfill with Georgia State and other schools down below them. They will lose and then they will gain because they have conferences below them. If there's going to be a death, it's going to be the death of a conference like CUSA. They're the ones that would lose and then not be able to backfill.
All right.
I've got Memphis going to the ACC, by the way.
No.
The ACC or the AAC?
ACC. They're already in the AAC.
Oh, so you think the Memphis is going to get into the ACC eventually?
I do.
Gotcha.
Good.
They've got a huge stadium rebuild going on.
Yeah, that's
huge market, huge stadium, and the ACC we know loves them some basketball. So.
And if they lose Florida State and Miami, they'll have to take USF.
Yep. I think USF. I think USF and Memphis are very good options for them right now.
I agree. Why are Clemson and Miami so quiet? Do they not have a landing spot?
You're right. That is exactly why they're so quiet.
Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I just don't. I can't read the tea leaves. I'm not familiar enough with I know Clemson probably of all the schools wants the most to get out, even probably more than Florida State. But don't know.
Why mess with the good thing when it's going well? Why take on a bunch of heat on yourself when FSU is doing the job pretty well by themselves? I mean, if I'm Clemson and Miami, I'd be like, okay, you just keep on taking the bullets.
You're letting the guy walk in front of you in the minefield.
I mean, I know Jen probably doesn't like hearing that, but
no, that's not true. I don't see Florida State doing what they're doing if they didn't have a landing spot. And I'm telling you right now, if Clemson had one, they would be doing the exact same thing, and they probably would have started it earlier.
Yeah, and we've kind of agreed with you and said that as well. I'm just saying they're quiet doesn't necessarily mean that they don't. It does bring up the possibility that they don't. But the other possibility could be that they're just quietly doing what FSU is doing loudly.
Yeah, I think Florida State's always taken the villain role in this conference, and I think they're fine with that. I don't think they have a problem with that, and I think their fans don't have a problem with that. We don't they don't mind taking the arrows. They don't mind any of it. So it doesn't PR hurt them with their donors and their boosters and everything like that. Like, I totally get that. It's totally true. But Miami, on the other hand, that's another one that loves to be a villain. They love it. They love to be boisterous. They love to be loud. They love to be the cocaine cowboys, right? That's what they love. And so I really think, maybe not Clemson, but I think if Miami had a guaranteed landing spot, they would be a little louder.
All right. Edward Wayner asks, how much pull or leverage would Notre Dame have with a potential big membership to request a specific team or teams as a condition of joining? In my opinion, it would be Stanford if 2, if 4, Miami and UNC. Well, I'm going to put this out here right now. Stanford is never joining the Big Ten Conference. There's a story behind that I'm not going to get into, but they will not be welcomed into the Big Ten Conference. So Notre Dame does have their choice of pick, but it's not going to be Stanford. What do you guys think?
I definitely think that if they were to actually come to the Big Ten and say, okay, we're ready to fully join, but we want this school to come with us. Now, unless it was just something ridiculous, then no. But, if it's something reasonable and the Big Ten's like, well, that probably wouldn't be our first pick for number 2, but if it gets you on, then yeah, we're okay with that. Yeah, I think Notre Dame would have some say. What do you think, Bill?
I wonder what Cal would be thinking. I was your +1. What's this? Yeah, they do definitely. Notre Dame and Stanford got a relationship. They've got a scheduling relationship. Makes sense. Boy, that'd be rough on Cal though. They'd have nobody to part with over there.
Cal went with them. Like, yeah, the kind of little brother that you take along and then you leave out in the middle of the prairie all by themselves.
Yeah, that would be rough.
Look, I think if Notre Dame was going to go to the Big Ten and take Stanford with them, they would have done it when Washington and Oregon joined the Big Ten. I think Notre Dame only cares about Stanford as long as they need them. And honestly, they really don't. I think they were looking out for them. They got them in the ACC. Whatever. I mean, I guess you got, a $2 Coke when you could have gotten a $1 Coke? Fine. Cool. Good for you. You got him into a crappy conference that's going to die here soon, I would guess. But I don't see Notre Dame really caring all that much. I think if they want to take somebody to the Big Ten, they could have last year.
Yeah, it's true. They could have, but they decided to stay independent for now. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, before you leave, Bill, I want to get your answer to this question. Do you think once the Big Ten sets on 20, 22, or 24 members, the SEC matches that? Is there a need for symmetry, or is there a disadvantage to not having that?
Everything I've been reading and watching about the SEC is that they're really focused on the regionality of their conference. So I think they're going to be happy where they at. I don't think they're going to be in an arms race. If they can still get whatever the number lands on, 3 AQs or 4 AQs, whatever it is, the adding more members just makes it less likely that your schools are going to get in. So I think they would stay where they are.
All right. What do you before Bill leaves, Bill, do you have anything you want to plug or tell people where they can find you? Or
you can find me on billfarley.substack. That's where I post my articles, working on a couple right now. And also on X at Bill Farley PhD. I wanted just Bill Farley, but that was taken, and the real Bill Farley seemed just, I don't know.
And can I ask you a question, Bill, before you leave? How many times have people asked you if you're related to Chris Farley, and how many times have you wanted to punch him in the face?
It's diminishing. It was a hot question for a long time.
Right.
It's slowly diminishing.
Okay.
So,
is that because you've been punching him in the face, or is it just because people aren't paying attention as much anymore?
Yeah, sure about that one. Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you coming on a Friday night, Bill. We appreciate all your financial
Go Cyclones.
Thank
all right,
you.
Go Cyclones.
Oh, painful. All right.
What do you guys think about this on 2022 or 24?
No, yeah, I think he's right. The Big Ten and SEC are now on two very different trajectories in terms of how they're going to make up their conference. Trying to remain a regional conference and matching numbers with the conferences going coast to coast. To me, it doesn't seem like a good idea. I mean, if you can find the right fits and value, then sure, but I wouldn't set it as like a policy like we need to keep up. I don't think that would be a good business decision by the SEC.
What about you, Jen? Do you think they go uneven or even match up?
I don't think they're going to match up. I don't. I think yes, the SEC wants to stay in this regionality stuff, and they want to stay in this clean look. If they really wanted to be clean, they'd get rid of like Vanderbilt and all this other crap they got going on. But that's fine. I don't see them going as big as the Big Ten. I don't think they're going to match. I don't think they're going to match in the amount of teams. Maybe they will. I could probably be proven wrong, but I think that the SEC is going to stick to this regionality stuff. And I don't think there's enough teams that the SEC wants to add that would bring value.
All right.
I could be wrong.
No. Hey, look, you're a woman. You're always right. So let's not even argue about it.
Finally, somebody agrees.
Do you think FSU has a good enough case to get out for free? And that's from Bozzer US.
That's our Twitter. Eventually, sure. Yeah. I do actually think that they would win the case, and probably if they won the case, I have seen an argument. I don't remember where it came from. It was one of the lawyers who gets involved with this, that if they win that case, there's a good chance that the judgment would be for zero, because it's an all or nothing type of thing, if I remember right. Like the judge can't come and say, well, no, it shouldn't be this amount. It's down to here. So if the amount that the ACC or whatever is trying to get is deemed too high, then there's nothing. And so it'd almost be like an all or nothing. So if they win the case, yeah, I think that there's a very good chance that they get it for free. But I don't think they want to go that long. That's many years down the road.
Yeah. I think that would take like 2 years. And I think Florida State right now, they want to get in talks with the conference they want to go to, right? Or that they are thinking of going to. I think they want to get this done sooner rather than later. I don't think they want to play in the ACC in 2025. So I think they're going to settle. I think both parties want to settle. I think it works best for both. You don't drag it out too long.
Yep.
And maybe ESPN will keep the contract. I don't think they will.
I think that they're waiting for something. I think they've already decided personally.
Oh yeah, that's why their statement was so hilarious to me, because I think they knew that Florida State's going to the Big Ten and they're going to Fox, and ESPN is shutting that shit down. And Boston College and Wake, y'all don't bring the numbers. Sorry.
It's true.
All right. If North Carolina goes to SEC, does Big Ten go after Duke? No. All right. Thanks for that question, Clay Johansson. Carla Jenkins at Immaculate Dog. I live in Ohio. Keep them over there in the ACC.
She does not want Notre Dame. So I thought that was interesting, because what you've said from Ohio State about Notre Dame, and here's
Carla,
the counter opinion.
We could get them to bend the knee finally to accept their Buckeye overlords and kiss the buckled shoes.
I don't think Carla wants anyone else to join the Big Ten. She's we are too big. Let's not expand anymore. And there's quite a few Big Ten fans who are that same way. But unfortunately, I do think that they're still going a little bit further.
I do as well. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. We've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, where did the night go?
Can I ask you guys though one quick question? What are these rumors with Notre Dame? What is going on? Notre Dame is staying independent for like another 10 years. Am I wrong about this?
5 years at least.
5 years.
I think this is their final one. I think they have plans for the ACC. I think that they want actually schools to leave. Of course, I could be wrong. I think that they did not get their AAU status for free, shall we say. There is a story to that. I don't have that story in hand, but with them and their 200 million worth of research did not get that for free. That's just not happening. So somebody voted for them and got them that. Now, Stanford and Cal have a lot of votes coming out of California, like something like 10 in the AAU. You add in the Ivies and some other people, I think that they're clearing out. But that's just complete, conjecture and could be absolute BS. But that's what I think. I think that if they wanted to be in the Big Ten, they'd already be there. But I don't think they have forever to make this happen. And this is their final. Let's see what we can do at the ACC, and if it's not going to happen, then we can just back out and go to the Big Ten. So
Right.
I think this is within this 5-year period. Something is going to happen.
You think they're just like so enthralled with the fact that they have so much pull in the ACC, even though they bring nothing right now to the. I mean, they literally they don't have to do anything, but they get all these votes, they get all these elbows, they get everything. They get everything they want. It's insane to me.
Oh, and they'll be the top team. They'll always be in. They'll if Notre Dame, that would be their last FU to everyone else, is to have a conference like that where they can win it most years. Even if there's just one AQ spot, we're gonna get that. It's.
Do you think they'll get it though? Because I mean, NC State's defense is pretty damn good, and Notre Dame's, you can get defensive players in there.
NC State, I'm thinking probably goes to the Big 12. I think most of the public schools are going to clear out of there, except for maybe a couple like California and Pitt, who culturally can fit with the private
Pitt
schools.
Would go to the Big 12.
There's value there, but I don't think Pitt thinks of them that way. And because we saw Northwestern got away with NLRB, their case, because they were in a public conference or a public school conference, Dartmouth is getting nailed to the wall because they don't have any public schools in their conference. So if the Ivy needs to get that changed, they're going to need a couple of public schools at least. And so that's where I think California and a Pitt or someone else would serve their role to give them a little cover fire from the NLRB, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll just say this right now. The ACC has shown that they will grab ankle for Notre Dame time and time again.
It's so in the process.
Until Notre Dame until the ACC stops grabbing ankle, Notre Dame is not leaving anywhere. It is what it is.
Yeah, because they don't have to. They don't have to do anything. They're getting what they want, when they want it, how much they want, and they don't have to go anywhere. And this clown conference will give them whatever they want, even though they don't really do anything for them. They're non-revenue sports. That's the reason they're called non-revenue sports. They don't bring any money, guys. Okay? I hate to break this news. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Okay? Women's sports don't bring a lot of money. Olympic sports don't bring a lot of money. Okay? I can say this, I'm a woman. So, don't call me a misogynist yet. I mean...
We'll let her say that, but let's leave it on this, guys. Excellent show. Let's all take a drink together. I want to thank you all for joining us on the Big Freakin' Friday show. I want to thank Jen for being here, Bill Farley for being here earlier. It's always a party when Jen's here. We always get even more drunk for some reason. I don't know what it is. But,
she must say GT a lot. Sorry, guys, I'm all out.
She says Georgia Tech a lot. So
I do think Georgia Tech might go to the Big Ten, but that's fine. I'm not going to say it again.
Hey, I mean, that's a perfectly valid thought. I mean, there is, it's just a good thought.
We could be proven right someday,
Someday. We just
someday, and we'll have to come up with a new drinking game. Until then, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We will see you on Sunday for Mowing After Dark with me and Immaculate, where we'll get to more of your questions. We will have some answers. Some of them won't be popular, but they will be answers. Until then, I want to tell you, everybody, that we love you. Thank you for all the super chats that came in tonight. You guys are awesome. And we will see you on Sunday.
Adios.